This is as old, and so Hollywood, is a bigger adult version of those children's stories. And that's what it's about. You come out, you do your pitch. This is the character. This is the drama. How are they going to resolve the drama? You're hooked in the first 30 seconds. Matter of fact, we hook you in the first 10 seconds. This is John. John doesn't know it, but he's got cancer. I'm in. I'm listening. This is just like any children's story, any movie, any TV show I've ever seen. It's not your normal pitch. And you want it to be visual and memorable and emotional and connectable. And then you need your product or service to be the solution to their drama. And then kind of magically they learn about your solution. They try it. It's super simple. They put in X, they get back 10X. That's the secret sauce. That's the wow moment of revealing that your product or service does more. It takes in X input like Uber, one click, and you get back, boom, 10,000 times more than you put in, which is the single click to call a car, and you get back a person driving their car right up to you wherever you happen to be. And so here's a great a version of pitching Uber, for example. So you would say, this is John. He just got a call from his wife. She's at the hospital about to have twins. And she says, if you don't get here in 15 minutes, I'm leaving. We're done. And he's in the middle of nowhere. There's no cabs to be found. What does he do? So he calls his best buddy and he says, hey man, try Uber. So he, installs the app, clicks, get me a car. Boom. Now he sees the cars arriving in 3 minutes. And it even tells him when he'll arrive at the hospital, which is in 15 minutes. So he can now screenshot and share the ride back to his wife instantly. Hey, honey, the car arrives in 15 minutes. I'll be there. And here it is. Tragedy averted. I just did, by the way, a 30-second pitch, and I covered all the main steps, which is introduce character, introduce drama, introduce possible solution, or the problem of, there's no cabs around. And I highlighted the problem of the traditional market, which is, you don't have control over the supply of fixing your problem. And then Uber does. And even better, it tells you when you're going to be there. And I saved the relationship, which is the real value add of Uber. It's like, it's not that it gets you from A to B. It's that it solves huge personal problems in your life. Like, your partner potentially leaving you forever because you're not at the hospital when they're having twins. So it's called the happy ending. So I did a startup pitch in 30 seconds, and most startups are like, I need 10 minutes. I was like, no. And then they're like, I need 5 minutes. No, you don't need 5. You don't even need 4. You barely need 3.5. I just did Uber in 30 seconds. So but the point of all of that is to transfer to get the audience to feel electrical shock. And by the way, you can even optimize this whole framework where the person who's at the subject of the mental movie looks, and maybe the person you're addressing your pitch to is named Jeff. Okay, so maybe you name the character Jeffrey, and they just happen to look. You show their photo on the screen, and that person happens to even look a little bit like Jeffrey. You personalize it so that they are forced to empathize with it, because every movie you've ever seen, you pretend when you're watching Harry Potter, do you not, in some weird way, project your image onto Harry Potter and pretend you're Harry Potter, or, Luke Skywalker, or Princess Leia, or Rey, the new character in the new Star Wars film for the ladies, or whatever it is. We naturally do this, whether we'll admit it or not. And we do this in every story that we read, essentially, on some subconscious level. So you want the audience to project themselves onto the character in your drama. So make that very easy and make it look, smell, feel like that person. And maybe even the wife in the story happens to have the same name as the wife of the person you're pitching. And maybe the city that this story happens, and this is John, he's maybe the person you're pitching plays golf, and maybe they grew up in, San Diego. So this is John. He happens to be playing golf, at Torrey Pines Golf Course, which is in San Diego, which this person in the audience is like, holy shit, wow, how can I not deeply empathize with this character at this moment? Because, wow, it's personalized to me. So there's all kinds of magical tricks so that they are deeply emotionally engaged in the story, so that when they do their jury deliberation at the end of the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pitches, they can't help but remember that pitch above the other, because they become a blur after 5 pitches. Your brain can't even remember the startup names after 5 pitches as the jury. right? But if it's the one about John from his hometown who plays his golf at his favorite golf course, oh, you better believe he's going to remember that one. And he was deeply emotionally engaged and he heard every word of the pitch rather than watching Twitter or whatever. So there's just a ridiculous amounts of unfairness to this. And it makes it super easy for the person doing the pitch because it's a mental movie. I'll give you here's the best example. We're kind of an older group on stage. So can you remember, those of you on stage, Top Gun came out 30 plus years ago, 35 years ago, believe it or not. And he played a sport. There was some moment in the movie where the characters are playing a sport. Can you remember what sport they played? What kind of game or match they played in the movie? Flash your mic. Wait, oh, Chris, you ruined it. Come on. You got to flash your mic.
I'm sorry.
Flash your mic if you remember what sport the characters played in the movie of Top Gun, right? At some halfway through the movie, they start playing a game, right? You remember this? Now, your brain is remembering something from a 90-minute movie 30 years ago that you should not remember. It's not useless it's utterly useless information for the rest of your life. Your brain should abandon that part of your memory disk in your brain. Utterly useless. Why are you remembering that? Can you remember the slide 3 of the last pitch deck you saw? No, impossible. No. I bet you can't even remember the name of the company of the last pitch deck you saw, let alone the name of the movie. So why is our brain able to remember useless information from a 90-minute movie? And by the way, it's only a 2-minute segment of a 90-minute movie 30 years ago. Why does your brain remember that, but it can't remember slide 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, anything about the pitch deck you saw a week ago? It's because our brains are wired for narratives and stories with characters and drama and visuals. Our brains are not wired for Excel spreadsheets. What was on row number 3, column A of the last spreadsheet you were on? It doesn't work that way. Your brain does not work that way. But your brain does remember really obscure facts from movies you saw 20, 30 years ago that are useless. So make your pitch a mental movie. And it makes it easier for the pitcher because now the pitcher is telling a story. And it's far easier than doing a traditional pitch. So anyway, that's my rant about pitches. And I've been
Tyler, what was the sport? I didn't hear, Chris.
Volleyball.
Okay.
Sorry for everyone coming in mid-story. So, Chris,
the real key thing is there was a feeling there, like
yes,
she
emotional.
was meeting his friends.
Yes.
They get along, and she says, Maverick, take me home or lose me forever.
Right.
And everyone remembers that,
Right, exactly.
Nice quote.
And what song, what song did he sing to her, at the bar? So you still remember it today. It's really weird. Why does your brain remember that? So my point.
I don't know.
Huh?
Was it you lost that or you got that?
Yeah. Why do you, Lakeisha, how many years ago did you watch that movie?
Oh my goodness.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
So again, if I asked you to remember any element of a startup pitch from 20 years ago, let alone a 90-minute startup pitch, could you possibly remember, something happened in a startup pitch 20 years ago, even the name of the presenter or the name of the startup? No, you cannot. So it's an unfair advantage if you rejigger your startup pitch to be more similar to a movie and a drama with characters and a happy ending, just like Hollywood does, just like every children's story does, because we're biologically wired for that. So if you utilize this technique, which we've been doing for thousands of startups over a decade, which has been optimized endlessly, and it just, you get an unfair advantage in any kind of pitch competition or pitch thing with investors, because like I said, the investors always bring together groups of startups to pitch. It's never just one. They always bring them in groups. Anyway, so better.
Tyler, do you have something to direct us to? Because I watched that video that you did.
If just Google Tyler Crowley pitch, and you'll see it on YouTube, and I bet you'll see several videos of me explaining this methodology.
Literally, this morning she was pitching and she was like, Chris, I can't do this. You need to do this. And I'm like, you need the at-bats, you need to learn how to speak about what we're doing here. And tonight, it's like 11 o'clock, probably 1 o'clock where she's at. And I'm convinced she's going to win, and it's just framing it like that. I told her, like, this is a movie trailer we're presenting,
Right.
and you want them to get into the theater. And so don't give them everything, just give them the key points that'll get them in the
Exactly.
theater.
All you want is for them to think, I need to learn more. I'm engaged, because then they'll engage, and there's always a Q&A session afterwards anyways. So you just need them to feel the electric shock that you felt when you need them to feel this emotional shock like you do in any good movie, or in any good song is exactly the same as well. A song is essentially trying to transfer an electrical aha, wow, physical sensation to the listener, and the best songs intentionally do that. Like Avicii was a master at it. Like intentionally was like, how do I architect this pre-chorus that do 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 do. That's why EDM is like engineered, optimized for the dopamine, maximum dopamine output when the bass drops. It's actually engineered music genre to have like video games are. Video games are also engineered for maximum hormonal release in similar ways. So it's like it's doing the pitch in the same way. This what I call the wow moment. You need to actually make the audience say wow at some point in your pitch, like, oh wow, and they actually feel the wow electrically or chemically or hormonally. Like you have to get them to say oh wow, and if they say oh wow, they're in. If they don't say wow, you're screwed. So you can deconstruct your own pitch and rejigger it until you get the wow effect. And to get to wow effect, you have to present the input needed for your app, which you want to minimize to be as simple as possible. And then the output, they put in, the Google is a great example. You put in a little bit of text and then you get back, boom, way more than you put in. A whole lot more than you put in. Uber the same. You click one button, boom, you're getting something far more than you put in. The more you put in, the X, you have to make the output even more, 10X. And if your output is 10X more than your input, people say, oh, wow, that's more than I thought it was going to be. And that wow feeling, they sticks with them. They physically felt it. So you have to make the wow moment in your pitch. If you don't have a wow moment in your pitch, where and the wow moment is orchestrated around the input and the output. It's like in a song, the build up and then the chorus. The bass dropping, the dude, bum 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 bum. That's your input, and then boom, here comes the output, and the confetti cannon explodes, and that's oh shit, wow, I that was more than I expected. Okay, so anyway, enough ranting about how to pitch. So let's get into these big headlines. Jesus, we took a 14-minute detour at the beginning of tech news. So the top story at this very moment. Hold on, are you ready to feel the wow moment? Here it comes. There it is. Boom! Did you feel the? So Mozilla's analysis. Oh, this is about the Facebook story from yesterday. The continuing drama, as most of these dramas are, and the soap opera called Facebook. Yesterday we had a story that Facebook disabled the accounts and cut off the access of an NYU, New York University project called the Ad Observatory, because they had built a browser extension that allowed them to learn all about the data around political ads. And they were deconstructing the data around the political ads, and Facebook doesn't want you to do that. So they kiboshed that program of that PhD candidate at NYU. Now there's an update. Mozilla, which is the maker of Firefox, the browser, Mozilla did some analysis, and they say that Facebook's reasons for cutting off access to the researchers running the NYU Ad Observatory project, quote unquote, simply do not hold water. The company says privacy concerns forced it to block access for the team of academics. Whose privacy exactly? So, when Facebook said Tuesday that it was suspending the accounts of a team of NYU researchers, it made it seem like the company's hands were tied. The team had been crowdsourcing data on political ad targeting via a browser extension, something Facebook had repeatedly warned them was not allowed. Here's the quote. For months, we've attempted to work with NYU to provide 3 of their researchers the precise access they've asked for in a privacy-protected way, wrote Mike Clark, Facebook's product management director in a blog post. We took these actions to stop unauthorized scraping and protect people's privacy in line with our privacy program under the FTC order. Clark was referring to the consent decree imposed by the FTC in 2019, along with a $5 billion fine for privacy violations. You can understand the company's predicament. If researchers want one thing, but a powerful federal regulator requires something else, the regulator is going to win. Except Facebook wasn't in that predicament because the consent decree doesn't prohibit what the researchers have been doing. Perhaps the company acted not to stay in the government's good graces, but because it doesn't want the public to learn one of its most closely guarded secrets: who gets shown which ads and why. The FTC's punishment grew out of the Cambridge Analytica scandal. In that case, nominally academic researchers got access to Facebook user data and data about their friends directly from Facebook. That data infamously ended up in the hands of Cambridge Analytica, which used it to micro-target on behalf of Donald Trump's 2016 campaign. The NYU project, on the other end, the Ad Observer project, works very differently. Facebook doesn't give it access to data. Rather, it's a browser extension. Mind you, this blog post being written by Mozilla, a browser who knows a lot about browser extensions. Actually, I think pioneered browser extensions, if I'm not mistaken. Rather, it's a browser extension. When a user downloads the extension, they agree to send the ads they see, including the information in the "why am I seeing this ad" widget to the researchers. So the users have totally opted in for their data to be shared with the researchers. And Facebook saying, no, it's a violation of privacy. No, the user's saying, please violate my privacy to track the data around these ads I'm seeing. I'm opting into this research study. I know you're tracking my data. That's the whole point of this research project. So anyway, the researchers then infer which political ads are being targeted at which groups of users, data that Facebook doesn't publicize. Does that arrangement violate the consent decree? Two sections of the order could conceivably apply. Section 2 requires Facebook to get users' consent before sharing their data with someone else. Since the Ad Observer relies on users agreeing to share data, not Facebook itself, this isn't relevant. When Facebook shares data with outsiders, it, quote unquote, has certain obligations to police that data sharing relationship, says Jonathan Mayer, professor of computer science and public affairs at Princeton. But there's nothing in the order about if a user wants to go off and tell a third party what they saw on Facebook, exactly as I just described. Yeah, Facebook can't share your data with a third party like this lab. They can't do that. That's in their rules. There's nothing saying that I, as a Facebook user, can't share my data in this interaction with a third party. There's no verbiage about that. There's no violation of any terms of service here. I'm seeing ads. I'm telling someone else what I'm seeing. Facebook doesn't say you can't tell other people what you're seeing on Facebook. Hence, there's no breach of any privacy laws here or even policies. So that's why this is from Wired, from Mozilla, widely considered a good actor in the tech space, calling out Facebook, calling bullshit that their hands are tied. We can't, sorry, we can't help you. FTC doesn't allow it. No, they looked into this with a microscope, with a magnifying glass, find out, nope, you just don't want to share that data. It doesn't hold up to scrutiny. So we'll see how Facebook responds to that tomorrow. Now, the next big story is that senators in the U.S., Senator Loomis, Wyden, Toomey, propose amendment to infrastructure bill meant to exclude crypto developers, miners, node operators, and more from the broker definition. And this was a predictable development due to the understandable outcry of the crypto community about this. Basically, there's this massive multi-billion-dollar, trillion-dollar infrastructure bill America's trying to pass to fix its roads and bridges and everything, and digital infrastructure. And to pay for it, they're trying to crack down on taxing cryptos and everything else. And in the verbiage of this provision inside of this bill, 2,000-page bill, there's a couple paragraphs about crypto where it says anyone doing anything with crypto is going to have to anyone doing anything at all with crypto is going to have to record the verified legal names and addresses of everybody touching their thing at all. Anything, even minors. And anyone touching your Bitcoins, and you're a miner, and you're anybody doing anything, if you're touching anybody ever is touching your blockchains in any kind of way, you must have their registered addresses and identities. We must be able to contact them. And this is an IRS. This falls under the IRS. And if you violate this, you go to jail. That's how the IRS works. Ask Leona Helmsley. Right? There was a couple other celebrities that have gone to jail for tax avoidance. And John McAfee literally was sitting in a Spanish prison because
Wesley Snipes, the actor, he went to jail too.
Yeah, that was who I was thinking of. Thank you. So, this is not trivial. And by the way, John McAfee is kind of a crypto-related instance of IRSism, of which led to his mysterious death in a Spanish jail cell when the Spanish court recently, a month ago, ruled that he would have to be extradited back to the U.S. So don't go to Spain if you plan to do crypto and you want to, as the headline said yesterday from Washington Post, that a whole lot of crypto people are going to have to flee the U.S. to continue doing business as normal if they don't want to comply with handing over all of the user data, including their registered addresses and identities. So now three senators propose an amendment, which that's how you can change the bills. You add on amendments to this infrastructure bill meant to exclude developers and miners and node operators, but not the startups. And this still doesn't really help. It helps the miners and the node operators and the developers from being considered brokers by the IRS definitions. And it says a trio of U.S. senators is proposing legislation exclusion for crypto companies, including miners and software developers. So the developers would be avoided. So interesting update, but it hasn't been approved, so we don't know that will pass or not. Next big story. TikTok says it's testing its stories like feature called TikTok Stories. Oh, Jesus. The copying is just, they're even copying the names now, folks. So it was Snapchat and then Instagram. The Snapchat doesn't call them stories, right? They call them snaps. And then Instagram called them stories. And now TikTok is making TikTok stories because Instagram copied Snapchat with these little 24-hour, ephemeral content. By the way, Twitter's just ended. You no longer have what they call fleeting 24-hour tweets at the top of your Twitter app. They're now gone. It's now replaced by what they call the space bar for their Twitter Spaces. They're a carbon copy clone of Clubhouse. The fleet bar is being changed into the space bar for Twitter Spaces rooms. Pretty clever name, space bar. Anyway, TikTok is now going to do Snapchat-like stories called TikTok Stories. Well, I want to meet the genius who came up with that branding. And a source says it's available in a handful of markets outside the U.S. Twitter may have shut down its stories features, known as fleets today, but the stories format will continue to invade other social platforms, namely TikTok, with TikTok Stories. Next big story is Microsoft pauses free trials of its new Windows 365 service, which lets users stream Windows 10 or 11 through a web browser after a significant demand. Next story, Uber beats estimates. So Uber just did their quarter earnings reports, and now we're actually getting towards the end of the quarter reports. So tomorrow, I think, might be the last day. Ken, do you happen to know? We're certainly near the end of it.
I don't think we're close because there are some companies that wait much longer. I know some companies that wait till all their competitors report. They want to see what they say first. So we're still a couple of days at least, before you get the last one.
Yeah, but we're over the hump. So
we're over, because the ones that most people care about, the bigger ones,
they they go first. Yeah, Apple and Microsoft and all the big ones go quite early in this every 3 months. So 3 months from now, we'll have to revisit this all again. But welcome to stock trading, where this is the moment where everyone it's kind of becomes more transparent about how everybody's doing, because they have to reveal how they're doing. So Uber beats estimates. That's the important thing to know, is when they do their report, the Wall Street has an estimate of what they're going to report in terms of revenue and everything else. And if you either beat the street's assumptions and estimates, or you don't. And in this case, they beat the estimates, which normally means the stock goes up. So Uber beats estimates with a record gross bookings of $21.9 billion, up 114% year over year, adjusted EBITDA loss of $509 million, and improvement from the stock is down 6%. Why would it be down? even though they beat estimates. Well, because you with these high growth tech companies, you have to beat the estimate by a substantial margin, because that's kind of the norm now. Is like you got to show that, boom, we're doing way better than the market thought we were doing, not just a little bit. So if you got to beat it handily in 2021. Robinhood shares surged as much as 80% on Wednesday. Yes, Messi?
No, I was just gonna add also that I read somewhere yesterday that they said the long-term prospect of Uber is somehow affecting also the share drop.
Okay.
I don't know what their
Well,
long-term
I can
problem they
explain.
have.
So often, startups and companies who have to do these quarterly earning reports, I would call it sandbagging as a trader, but they sometimes they want to the Wall Street, the market has an expectation of how they'll do next quarter. And so after they reveal the data, and then they jump on a phone call with their investors and journalists, and they do a Q&A session. And during that Q&A session, they provide insight, a glimpse into how they expect to do for the next quarter. And that can tremendously impact the stock movement as well. Because from time to time, the company even says, you know what, next quarter might be kind of rough for us. And Amazon notoriously was kind of known for this. And it's because they want to lower the street's expectations so that it's easier to beat it next quarter. Or they know that they have a substantial change that they have to make in the next quarter, the next 3 months. They're going to turn off some product or feature, and they're going to try and add a new one. They're doing a kind of interesting new recalculation or calibration internally, like Twitter's doing with Twitter Spaces, like Uber's probably doing. They are adjusting some aspect of, converting into autonomous vehicles away from human drivers, for example. Yeah, so there's going to be, it's unclear how it's going to play out, this transition in the next quarter. We're going to be transitioning away from human drivers into autonomous drivers. That might slow down business. We're not sure, but we feel that we have to let you know, because we don't want you to sue us next quarter when we didn't give you a hint that things could go bad. So they probably did the caveat of, hey, you know what, next quarter, all bets are off. We're not sure ourselves how it'll play out. So, buyer beware. And when you do that, investors are like, okay, well, there's a lot of other startups out there who aren't warning us that next quarter might be bad. So maybe we'll put our investment there. And so that puts downward pressure on the stock. So it's based on the guidance, as the technical term, the industry term, of the company providing guidance for next quarter. And if they provide imply that things aren't going to be peachy next quarter, well, yeah, that puts inevitably you're going to have like a drop, which is not bad, because now you've removed a whole lot of the pressure on the company for the next 3 months to perform well. And now you can focus on what you need to do without the expectation that you're going to crush it on the next report. That's why they do it. So the next big headline is that Robinhood shares surged as much as 80% on Wednesday, reaching $85, with trading halted several times and closed the day at $70, up 50%. And as we mentioned this yesterday, when it had jumped about, 10-ish%, and it was kind of assumed that was a result of Jim Cramer, who's an American personality on CNBC, who, when he hypes a stock, it can go up a bit. Even for him, moving something 10%, yeah, from time to time he can do that. But that's substantial to move a stock 10%. And it did go up 10% right after Cramer said that he really likes Robinhood. And he's telling his fans who watch his show to buy Robinhood. But then the next day, it goes up 80%. And that's because of Wall Street Bets, the Reddit community of young folks using Robinhood, and where they collectively get together and strategize and say, hey, if we all buy at once, well, we can make the stock go really high really quickly. And if anyone who was shorting the stock now has to cancel their short, and because they're going to worry that they'll never get, they're going to be negatively forever. They're going to lose all their money, and they've successfully done this on GameStop. Very famously was the first instance, and what was the second one that they went after?
There's AMC.
AMC, the movie theaters, and then they thought that when Robinhood had a bad first day on the opening, I think that surprised many of them because they haven't been traders for a long time. After you've been trading for a long time, you learn that tech startups often go down on IPOs. They didn't used to, but they are now. And I think they thought there was a lot of short selling on the opening day of the Robinhood IPO, and so that inspired them to focus on
Hey,
Robinhood.
Tyler, I don't know what the rules are anymore, but like, because I mean, I haven't done this for for a few years. But for most, when I was in the market like heavily professionally, you couldn't short an IPO stock. It wasn't allowed. You had to wait for some period of time after the IPO. I don't, so I don't know if they've changed the rules recently, but historically, you could not short an IPO.
Yeah. So the popping of 80%. That's that. There's nothing else except for President Xi Jinping. Nobody has a power to move a stock 80%. He did with the gaming companies in China recently, where he said you're not going to be companies anymore. You're going to be nonprofits, and that will move a stock 80%. But other than that, other than the entire company falling into the ocean and sinking to Atlantis, it's very hard to move a company 80% in a day. As Rob, with the exception of this GameStop, kind of trading, you could call it, I don't know, a mob or whatever, but they're doing something truly unprecedented. This just you do get traders on Wall Street working together sometimes, but this is a whole different potato. This is thousands of people simultaneously coercing to move a stock rapidly. So it's wild to watch. So if you're on the right side of that trade, now why I say all this is because the day before this 80% spike, there was a 10% bump. Is it possible that the leaders of this, Wall Street Bets crew, put in their positions a day early, knowing that tomorrow it's going to pop and the whole world's going to, all of our whole crew of traders is all going to, bump this stock up and, 80%. So I want to get in early on that. And maybe the information, because 10% is a bit for Jim Cramer. You see what I'm saying? I'm looking at the chart and I'm like, it looks like Cramer certainly could have done some of that, but maybe these Wall Street bets, they've got a mole inside who's telling a few friends, and that's what's causing some of this 10% the day before. We'll see. Let's see next time. Next time the Wall Street bets team bumps up a stock, a huge percent. Let's see if the day before it goes up 10% or not. Messi, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna add that the article that I posted yesterday, it says that the upward bump started after they gave like a quarter of their share, like 25% of it, to its own already existing clients. I don't know who they are, but that's what they did. They sold that much of huge stock to their own already
No, that was to
existing
Robinhood
clients.
clients. No. So you no. So what they did is they gave. Let me explain this. They gave the Robinhood clients, which is not Reddit. Okay, they gave the
Customers.
Robinhood
Yeah.
customers and
Users. Yeah.
users an allocation in the IPO. Typically, in an IPO, most IPOs, the only people who get them are the big institutions, and the hedge funds, the T Rowe prices, and all of that. And it's hard for retail investors to get an IPO because Robinhood is so retail focused, and they want to democratize trading. And they can do this because it's up to the company that's selling. They basically said we want an allocation that would usually go to the big guys to go to some of our our account holders. So and so that's who got the stock. That's very different than the situation with Reddit. And by the way, I did look this up because like I said, I wasn't fresh on it. You can actually short a stock on an IPO. However, there's probably not a borrow, and the SEC prohibits the underwriters from lending out shares for a short sale for 30 days after the IPO. So that's what I was.
That's still in effect now.
That's what I read. I'm reading online, so I haven't. Yeah.
There you go. Good to know. So the downward motion isn't based on short selling. So it's curious why Wall Street Bets decided to go strong on Robinhood, because traditionally their other movements have been based on the fact that they want to do short squeezes, which is what gets the big pop that they get. So if there's no shorts to squeeze, why would they go into Robinhood?
Well, there could be because sometimes like what happened with GameStop, there were people shorting naked who perhaps shouldn't have been shorting naked. That means they didn't even have a borrow. So maybe that happened.
Naked shorts. Yeah.
Who knows?
Okay.
And today, I don't know who this person is, but it says our case invest. Cathy Wood purchased like about almost 90,000 shares, and then that kind of spiked the Wednesday's rise. That's what they are saying. This is an influential investment person, and then once they did that type of huge purchase, that it kind of pulled others to get it into the game. But yeah, that's what CMC was saying.
Okay. So the next biggest headline at this very moment, and a very happy Thursday to everybody. The next one's from Forbes, and the headline is Email Service Superhuman, which charges $30 a month for its email client, kind of a Gmail alternative. Hasn't formally launched yet. It's still in what they call a beta. Raises $75 million at a $825 million valuation, covering venture capital software, blah, blah, blah. So I have some really interesting stories to share on this one. Anyone a Superhuman user or has tried it or know someone that has? Flashing mics. Does anybody care about Superhuman, or I'll skip the stories? It's an interesting story. Raul,
what is it, Tanner? What is my ignorance? What is Superhuman?
Superhuman is an alternative to Gmail. It's email, except they charge $30 a month. And you're thinking, wow, why would I pay $30 a month for this? Well, it provides all kinds of additional features that no other email platform really has. Where when somebody emails you, it fetches everything about that person on the internet for you and creates a little dossier on the right side of the screen, and all of their latest tweets, everything about them on LinkedIn, when they were online. I mean, anything you could ever want to know about them. And
weren't they bought out by somebody?
Superhuman wasn't. Their previous company was, which was called Reportive, was bought by LinkedIn. And this is the story I'm going to share with you, because when Raul and Sahel built Reportive, they got an article in Lifehacker in about 2009 or 10. And I saw that little feature. I was like, holy shit, that's really cool. What Reportive was doing was a plugin for Gmail. And it was like an extension for Gmail. You have little apps you can add into Gmail, and they were one of those apps. And they were trying to do this, like get all of this extra data around the person you're emailing with so that you could see that. And you would have all of their social links now in a nice little window with their photos, so you could see them, and even their phone number. It was very cool. And then Gmail realized, people are really liking this thing. We'll start integrating more of this into Gmail and shut them out, as they can do, because it's Gmail. And they, if you build something good inside of Gmail, they'll just do it themselves and cut your pipes so you can't do it. Anyway, that takes time for them to realize you're a threat. But once you get big enough, they'll just eat you, kind of cannibalize you. Anyway, so Raul, they got this article in Lifehacker, which is a tech blog. And Jason and I were chatting, is there anything cool that's been going on lately? And I remember pointing out, this is a really cool thing, Reportive. And he started using it. I was using it. We loved it. He's like, reach out to them and, see if we can set up a call. So I called Raul, like, hey, and he was living in Cambridge at the time. He's a, English of Indian origins. And I said, this is fantastic, man. This is amazing. I can't believe it's free, and this is a game changer for using email. And so, are you looking to raise money? He said, yeah, well, maybe. And I was like, well, at that time, Jason had just become Sequoia Capital's first scout to find startups to invest in, really early stage startups. And that's where he invested in Uber. And he did invest in Reportive. And I was going to invest as well. And then they did Reportive. It was going well. They realized Gmail probably going to kill them, so they sold Reportive to LinkedIn. And they worked at LinkedIn for it was like a 3-year lock-in that they had to work there as part of that acquisition. They got a few $1 million. I think they got $2 million each. And then they didn't like working at LinkedIn, and they really wanted to continue their vision. But to continue their vision, they would have to build their own email platform because outside of Gmail, you see what I'm saying? Because Gmail would cannibalize them. So they had to build their own, which is superhuman. But they could do all kinds of other things in addition to what they really wanted to do with Reportive. There was other additional things they could do if they were independent outside of Gmail and built their Gmail alternative that they controlled themselves. And so they Raul pinged me and Jason. We went for dinner at Fang in San Francisco on, what is that, on 3rd or 4th, next door to the W Hotel. And he's like, yeah, listen, you're the first to know. We're going to leave LinkedIn, and here's what we want to do. It's a kind of Reportive 2.0, but we're going to actually build the Gmail ourselves this time so we can really do everything we really ever wanted to do. And you're literally the first to know right here, right now. Jason Tyler, do you want to invest? And I was like, I don't know about competing with Gmail, man. Like, that's going to be rough. And so I didn't. I think Jason did. And now here's the headline. They just raised they just raised 75 million at an 825 million valuation, and they're still in beta. And it's a very loved product, and I couldn't be happier for them. They're fantastic guys, fantastic product, and hope they can keep it rocking. The challenge in this one is, and I was going to ping Raul in so he could give us an update on what's going on with the company, because we still chat from time to time. But what I find really interesting is it's still in beta years later, like 3 years later. That's a very long beta. That's unheard of. And I think the reason it's still in beta is because the second they make it public, Gmail is going to deconstruct this thing. And they've been very careful about who's allowed into the beta. You have to apply to get Superhuman. And because of this application, you even kind of need a recommendation it's kind of like a very exclusive club to have Superhuman. Well, why are they doing what?
I remember when I applied, they followed me on Twitter.
Yeah.
For like a month.
You know why?
Before they give you access.
Right. You know why? Because they're correct.
Yeah, because they want to know who you are.
What? Yeah, why?
Where you are.
Why? I know why. But I'm playing games. Oh. I want to know if you can figure out why they're doing that.
There's no links to Google.
There you go. Exactly right. Yeah. Because they know as soon as they go public, Google's just going to rip this off. And they have to be very careful to not let Google or Apple or any of those employees into their little system to rip it off.
Yeah, FYI,
yeah, Tyler was going to say, yeah, so I got Superhuman about a month ago. And I thought that the reason they had the invite system is also to ensure that when they onboard the users, they make sure they bring on the ones who are most likely to be a fit for the product.
Yep.
And obviously recommend it to others, because of course in this game of acquiring users, if you can lower your acquisition costs by having power influencer users who love it.
Yep.
It's for example, inviting my dad or someone who's an Outlook or Android user might not be a good idea because they might not like all the shortcuts or the power features, and they'll be like, oh, this sucks. And of course, it's a paid product as well, so you're paying for it. You better be able to recommend it to people when they come out the gate, kind of almost like Clubhouse style. So I thought that was one of the major reasons why they had the invite process. I was also shocked, by the way. By how many onboarding emails I got sent. I think I counted about 25 every day for like almost 2 or 3 weeks. I was getting an onboarding email from Raul and others being like, hey, this feature, that feature. I mean, it was good in the beginning, but it got a little bit tiresome. But for some, it might be really helpful because you get on board on the product really easily. So you get the most out of it quickly.
Yeah.
Say, Tyler,
yeah.
I so appreciate your backstories and the context that you give, to the headlines. And I also really appreciate your humility. when you share stories that, they call out times that you've missed out on investing in promising companies. It takes a lot of humility to do that. And I just wanted to acknowledge that because
No,
I think
that's
that's how the
no,
rest of us are able to learn from your experience. So
no, 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 no.
no, but you don't have to do that, right?
No, but there's
It
no humility necessary in saying, I got pitched something that didn't work. I got pitched, all kinds of shit. I did I tell you the Uber story when I didn't go into Uber?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
or
But
Dropbox, or
many
Jesus,
people would not,
tons. Yeah.
many people would not acknowledge the fact that they had the opportunity to be an early investor. And they're like, I don't know. It's a good idea, but I think I'm going to pass, right? I think that would be like an inside story, but not certainly something that people would share in a public platform. So I just wanted to
Oh, no,
call it out.
no,
Just say thank you or not.
that's
Just say
fine.
thank
But
you
I'm
or
just
not.
to let you know. People who get, investors in startups, this is the kind of stuff we talk about endlessly over coffee. This is just a day in the, it ain't no big thing. So we do this all the time. Anyway, the
Teddy,
I do
next,
want to
just a
say,
quick comment on
yeah,
that story. So, we did that poll the other day, didn't we? When we said, would you pay for the subscription for YouTube? We didn't
yeah,
have many flashes, and it's just quite interesting to think on this one, right?
yeah.
So it seems like it's quite unique, where it does this grab of all of the other, social stuff that lets you know who the person is that you're emailing before you hit them. So I get the value proposition in it. My question is more like, I just looked at the head count. They got 85 people, right? So there must be some. They've obviously got their own IP and they've got their own, data architecture, and they've got their own like secret sauce. But be interesting to kind of understand underneath it, like what 85 people for a company doing this. In my view, it's quite a chunky head count, and like
It's because
so.
it's a lot of onboarding. They manually onboard you. There's like customer service reps who, as Mabana will tell you, they physically talk with you one-on-one about onboarding onto the product.
Seriously, I got like so many emails, videos, touch points. It was pretty insane. They're going for a very high NPS score, right?
High. Oh,
Which is
insane! They are
very,
optimized. They are utterly
yeah.
optimizing for what Raul calls delighting the customer, and it's an incredibly laborious and those onboarders, the main metric they do is how many users can they onboard per week, and then whoever in the company onboarded the most people that week, get an award. And it's a very big deal. That's the thing they track more than anything, because it's a very laborious hand holding process of onboarding onto the platform. But they know once they get you through that, you'll use it forever and you'll never go out. And so they're willing to make that very laborious investment, but you need a lot of people to do that very mechanical, manual, high touch point onboarding, kind of white glove approach. That's why the high head count.
and,
It's not
and and it's a
engineers.
paid
And
product.
yeah,
It's almost like a SaaS. It's a SaaS product in many ways,
yeah,
because they're looking at the lifetime value, and so they can invest. If you're paying, I think it's $10 a month, or maybe a
30.
little bit more, something like that. $30 a month. Yeah, that's a SaaS. That's a entry level SaaS product for many enterprises, right? So per user. So imagine if yeah. So it's for power email users basically, right? This
Yeah.
is the product for them.
So, Charles, you want to make a comment about
I
turning
would
down
just say
investments? Yeah.
I would strongly recommend people not install Superhuman. It's gotten a poor security review, and I would look into Masha Drakova, who is one of their early investors, given her relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And I think one of the dumbest things people can do is trust their email to this company. I just want to be firmly on the side of telling people to avoid this company.
Well, this is an interesting
And I
point.
might know a lot more about this
Yeah,
than
yeah.
I'm letting on, but I want to be very.
Yeah, doing security on a fintech or a communications platform, as you see, even Facebook with WhatsApp is, has vulnerabilities. Even Apple with iMessage, we now know in these headlines, has vulnerabilities. It's incredibly difficult to build a communication platform and make it. You need to have Apple level resources to make it secure, and even they have trouble keeping it secure. It's incredibly challenging when you're dealing with very sensitive user data like your email or your banking stuff. it's incredibly challenging for a startup to do that. And so, yeah, even so,
I
unless
would say that the hypothetically speaking, I would say that people should look at early investors in a company and really do due diligence. All of that stuff is public, and ask oneself, why is it this early investor is investing in this company? What other things have they been involved in? And one of the people that they will see who is an early investor in Superhuman is a woman named Masha Drakova. It's Drokova. And you should type her name in with Jeffrey Epstein and see what comes up, and see if you feel comfortable having Jeffrey Epstein's publicist as an early stage investor in a company that has control over your email. And there's a reason why a lot of us are not allowed to use Superhuman who do work with the federal government. And this is sort of something that people should know if they're going to go and trust their emails. And I believe that part of the reason there's this laborious onboarding process is because they want to make sure that the people who are in this program are people whose emails they might want to read. So I think this could be like a very serious security issue, and I think people should be warned about it ahead of time. And I'm happy to defend that, publicly or privately. But I know that there are lots of us who are not allowed to touch this product, and there's probably a very good reason for that.
Okay, next headline is Amnesty International. Of the world's 53 largest VC firms, only one meets UN human rights due diligence standards. What the hell do VC firms have to do with UN human rights? Oh, I know what they're getting into. Like, let's read this. So the article says out of the 53 companies and accelerators surveyed, only one potentially set up a policy to investigate and stop contributions to human right abuses. Okay. Venture capitalists are failing to do even the bare minimum to ensure their investments are not contributing to human rights abuses, according to Amnesty International. In a report published on Friday, the organization dives into the complicity of venture capital firms in human rights abuses. In a survey of 53 of the world's largest venture capital firms and startup accelerators, and after a review of public records when available, the nonprofit discovered only one firm potentially had human rights due diligence processes in place that met international standards set up by the UN guiding principles on business and human rights, as well as the OECD guidelines for multinational enterprises. The UN guiding principles, the report states, establish the corporations have the responsibility to respect human rights and avoid causing contributions to abuses. Furthermore, companies are expected to address and remediate any abuses, prevent, blah, blah, blah. In reality, however, most industries, but especially the VC industry, Amnesty argues, have little interest in doing any of this. 8 of the companies surveyed said they conducted due diligence, but could not provide enough information for Amnesty International to confirm the UN standards were being met. And in the report, a few VCs in particular are singled out for their role in funding and building surveillance systems. Lightspeed Venture Partners, which invested in AnyVision, which is the Israeli based facial surveillance company that was acquired and that was accused of targeting Palestinians in the West Bank, and Tiger Global Management, a VC firm that invested in SenseTime, a Chinese technology facial recognition company that built facial surveillance programs targeting Uyghurs in China, both of which are competitors to Charles's U.S.-based facial recognition system.
And curiously, none of the companies that have invested in the American version of these products is in trouble. Interesting.
In a statement, AnyVision denied that it surveilled Palestinians in the West Bank and pointed out that a Microsoft audit did not substantiate the allegation, even though the tech giant terminated its relationship with AnyVision. Tiger Global Management and Lightspeed Ventures did not respond to Motherboard's request for comment. VCs stand out in a sector that does not do a good job to begin with. They stand out in terms of just how little they care about human rights, said Michael Kleinman, director of Amnesty International Silicon Valley Initiative. I think it is simply a lack of will. These firms are incredibly powerful. It's not asking VC firms to do something that companies in other sectors aren't already doing. And so the idea that these incredibly powerful firms could not do this is laughable. So you get the idea here. But they're right. Normally, when startups pitch and when investors listen to those pitches, they're focused on how much money can this make? What's the market? This just isn't part of the hygiene of evaluating startups generally in Silicon Valley.
And that needs to change.
That's kind of what this article is bringing up, because if they get their feet held to the fire in the way that this article's doing, I don't think I don't know that this will change culturally in Silicon Valley. It might a little bit, but
Yeah, so the last fund I just raised that had IFC involved, that was shocked the amount of ESG that I had to integrate. I was kind of scared. I was like, because it has to flow down to all the startups, right?
yeah,
And one of the things I brought up, and it's a topic in the early stage community, and maybe Florian and others in the space can further comment on here, is that yeah, it's very hard to hold the early stage startup. The classic, two people and a dog in the shed, in a back garage, to these crazy ESG standards, like including the labor aspect. But at the same time, I'm working in emerging markets where that is an important thing to follow, because you could be particularly with things like ride sharing, delivering companies, treating employees, and of course government regulations in each country have to be followed, and it's quite laborious. The impact investment community, I think, already we're doing this to some degree, but yeah, like as a Silicon Valley trained VC, when I started seeing this in my new LPs, particularly
I was
these
about to say,
development banks,
yeah.
they were just like, I was like shocked. But actually now, because explaining it to startups, of course, that was a big drama for me, But some of them were like, oh, actually, I read an article about this in The Economist, ESG, and I do want to get ahead of this. Thanks. And some startups are like, get out of here. Like, I got a YC term sheet. I'm raising money from the Chinese. It's closing in 2 minutes. Why are you adding this extra burden on me? But others are like, you know what? I like this angle, and I want to get ahead of the curve. Even if we're not perfect at day one, by Series A or Series B, we want to be excellent, and it's a value add for us.
So your Mabana said the secret word, which is the LPs, because that will be the forcing function, which is the LPs are going to become, they are these huge pools of money, and they're very sensitive about where that money goes. And so it comes with strings attached, which is we need to make sure that you're not giving this to terrorists or anything related to terrorists, or, because it could be a PR nightmare for those LPs. And these are huge foundations and government funds. And so this is an incredible concern for them. But that typically applies to, the really big VCs. Yeah. So, but it doesn't normally apply to, it does start to be more and more applicable to people like Mabona, who's, in a new geography that's of an interest. He's raising a fund. LPs are going to be interested. And many of those LPs are going to make damn sure he's not giving that money to bad actors or people tied, or even people tangentially, potentially connected to bad actors. They don't want to even risk any of that, because that would be a powder keg, tinderbox scenario for them. So the forcing function on these investors is going to be the LPs. Basically, that's how the hygiene it will be enforced. Florian?
Yeah, and there's a blacklist that's forming by the U.S. government as we speak. Apparently, the Treasury is working on it already.
Florian?
Yes, I mean, this is, of course, our daily bread, because you have to assess geopolitical risk when investing in different countries around the world. A lot of investors, actually, mainly US investors, big time actually, focusing on US businesses, or at least headquartered in the US, or if they invest in the company they make, it's basically force you to headquarter the company in the US jurisdiction in the same sense. And again, it's also a fine line, because when you invest in Mumbai, you know that, when you invest in a country, you might have look at a geopolitical situation overall. Then sometimes you have some good years to invest, but afterwards things might swing down again, especially in emerging markets.
Yeah.
So that's a big topic.
Yeah, this is totally relevant to the fact that it's becoming a global game. Inside the U.S. itself, the traditional game of U.S. investors investing in the U.S., that's why they just didn't focus so much on this. They call out Tiger Global. Tiger Global is one of the most global, they are doing so much high volume number of investments that they can't possibly even have the time to even, they are just throwing throwing spaghetti at the wall. They're just anything that seems reasonable, they invest in it. So they're clearly not doing due diligence, and they're investing all over the planet in emerging markets. And that's where you're going to get slap back. However, my point is, unless their LPs care, it's not really going to change. The issue is going to be the LPs are going to be the one that's going to force this on their VCs. Because as a VC, you're very similar to a startup. You got to raise money from LPs. And the question is, do your LPs care or not? And more and more these days they do, especially if you're investing in emerging markets, as Florian said, as it becomes more of a global game. So you get the idea. So
Well, the U.S. government, I mean, the U.S. government is going to force this on a lot of,
right,
on a lot
that's
of
that's a
LPs.
But even,
step.
yeah, but even with unfair rules, okay, just to be very precise, for example, when US imposed FATCA rules on money movements around the globe, it wasn't just to have a transparency. There's also a power game behind, because I can go to Delaware, I give my passport, and I open a freaking bank account. Today in Switzerland, not possible. And if I'm a US resident or have a bank account or have any ties to the US fiscally, in terms of privately owning a home or having to pay my taxes there, it is a nightmare to open a bank account today in Switzerland because of those different rules. So this is not just, to have a moral institute. This is a way to actually gain influence around the world through money, through the dollar, but also in a way that FATCA rules are very stringent on other countries and other institutions, but not at home. It's very easy for me to go there to Delaware and open a company and a bank account.
Well, in the case of Delaware, part of the reason that that's the case is because we can monitor Delaware quite well. I mean, you'll note our president of the United States is from Delaware, right? So obviously, it's a place where our eyes can peer into it quite easily. But what's happening right now, in the case of Tiger Global, I mean, Tiger has all sorts of deep state connections, and if you look at, they invested in SenseTime, I'd be very shocked to see if they ever get a return on SenseTime, given that SenseTime is banned from the US. There are all these kind of deeper questions about SenseTime that are playing out right now. And as to AnyVision, which is, both of these are competitors to the American company Clearview, which is one of the companies I co-founded. Spirit of full disclosure. In case of AnyVision, I mean, SoftBank is heavily involved in investing in that, and that's a company that has all kinds of issues. If you want to look at like the WeWork documentaries that have come out and all these sort of stories that are coming out about WeWork and its involvement with SoftBank and SoftBank's involvement with Sheldon Adelson and
Or
sort of a number
MBS, more
and
notably.
MBS and a
Yeah.
number of other sketchy players worldwide, I would just be what I think is going to happen, and what I've been told is going to happen in the very near future, is that the U.S. government is simply not going to allow Silicon Valley players and others that don't submit to stringent
To
requirements
take money
that
from
they're setting
MBS.
up, yeah, to get government contracts, right?
Yeah.
So like that's a big issue,
Yeah.
and I think you're going to start seeing that more and more. The sort of security review come into play on a lot of these things. CFIUS has been beefed up recently, and in the infrastructure bill, there's apparently quite a lot that beefs up CFIUS as well. That's being discussed now.
Okay. Next, big article, because we still got a bunch of big ones to get through. EA, which is Electronic Arts, one of the biggest video game companies, if not the biggest on the planet, estimates Q1 total net revenue of 1.55 billion, up from 1.46 billion, so tiny incremental growth year over year. Net income down from net bookings, so not a strong quarter for EA. A look at, just insane amount of competition. If you're one of the big gaming companies, there's so much competition in the gaming space from the startups, and it's hard to stay at the top of the gaming pyramid. The next article, it says a look at new labor force using microtask platforms like remote tasks to create and edit data sets for self-driving cars locate primarily in the global south. To master the roads, autonomous vehicles need a lot of data. Workers everywhere from Kenya to Venezuela are providing it. It sounds like it's an artificial intelligence scenario where every day for over a year, and unfortunately this is a narrative story that they wrote, but it sounds like the story's about so here it is. So someone named Tori Elliott tweeted about this article saying, often users treat tech like it's magic. Terms like smart and autonomous imply humans are not involved in the process, but that's far from the case. To make self-driving cars a reality requires thousands of hours of invisible labor. Yeah, artificial intelligence is what we call it internally, and that's my buddies Bryce and Jasper at TaskUs, which just IPO'd, by the way, and sold half the company to BlackRock for $1 billion, by the way, and been friends since they were 13 folks, and now they're over 30,000 folks. and I'm sort of an informal advisor to the company, actually. So from the earliest days, and essentially what they do is a lot of companies that claim to be AI actually are using armies of Taskus team members in Manila to do mechanical, human processing, and it looks like it's AI in the background, but it's not. It's human powered. So that's why it's called artificial intelligence. So the next big headline is Tinder Parent Match Group says it will add audio and video chat, including group live video, to several of its brands over the next 12 to 24 months. Dating app maker Tinder Parent Match Group said it's during its Q2 earnings audio, interviews, it will bring audio and video chat into group live video. Interesting. Let's see what that ends up looking like. Someone tweeted saying introducing Dick Talk, like TikTok, but dating, Dick Talk.
Beautiful.
Moving right along. I don't.
Very
Moving.
fine semantics. Very fine semantics.
Next up, dick recognition as opposed to facial
Oh my
recognition.
god! For when people send dick pics, it's recognize that dick. Oh my goodness, that would be amazing. Someone should. Someone could
Dude,
build that.
Tyler, I have this story, the pitch based off of your skills.
What's
It's
that?
like basically you've got your husband gets your wife gets a text. You're hoping to God it's not a dick pic of your friend Bill.
Oh, this is the
Well,
pitch. Yes,
we've got the software to make sure that
we
doesn't
know.
happen.
Yeah, your wife just got an embarrassing photo, and she doesn't know how to figure out. Luckily, she just heard about a brand new service called, Dick Pic Checker RS, and now it's very simple. You just upload the offending photo. It's kind of like FaceTime or facial recognition, but different.
Very much
I wouldn't
so.
want to be part of the. If it was an artificial intelligence company, I wouldn't be part of the checkers on that.
But Charles, could you not add this to the?
This is extremely technically doable, and
That's what I mean.
I've had way too many conversations about extremities and how you could build different recognition off of ears and other things like fingerprinting,
You know how
obviously.
much women would pay? The women would submit all of the data. They know who the guy is. They submit it to the database, and they're like, "Look, here's this guy's pic. Add it to the database." Charles, come on, that would be huge.
That
What a huge! That
life is
would be a
very
huge
long.
PR move.
Life is very long, and this is one of those things that I just don't want to touch, so to speak.
Tyler,
Yes.
this is a very interesting, as much as we have the gist of it as well, but the reality of it is that there's a use case for this as well,
Oh, totally.
and the use case is for the number of women that are raped and date raped, and the fact that men get off, no pun intended, but a lot of men get off scot-free because they can't be found or they can't be identified fast enough or quick enough, or the woman who was raped isn't in a societal level where she could have the money to get lawyers and cops and detectives and people to help her find the perpetrator, right? But when you look at like how we have in the US, we have the database of sex offenders and following where they go.
No, but
This would be
yeah,
this would be the next level
yeah.
of that
But
process.
also, when a lady receives the photo, and ladies are receiving these photos all the time, everywhere, all the time, as I'm told, and this could
As are
be
some men,
Ridiculous, of
unsolicited.
course.
it's kind of like WikiLeaks for dicks. It's called Dicky Leaks, and so
Dicky leak.
No joking. I mean, no joking. Like seriously, it's
This
very
is
doable.
this is this is a good product. I'm not even
It's
joking
very,
This
around.
is
very
not even, this
doable.
is an excellent product, because when you start seeing the population and you start looking at all the sort of the negativity around, I think every dad could consider the possibility that if there was a way to prevent or at least be more proactive in the protection and safety of their daughters as they age and get older, I think this is something really fascinating, and I think it's an
Totally,
excellent I think
Could,
it's an
could,
excellent idea because when you start imagining that, yeah, Tyler, I mean, I don't know where men get off on doing that, but I don't know what they think they're
But
getting by
this could
doing
address
that.
it.
remember, no,
If guys
remember
knew,
last.
if guys knew that they're,
They would never be doing that
I'm
because they
saying we
would
could
know.
solve dick pics right now with
We
DickieLeaks.
Remember,
totally
guys,
can
I
completely.
got bombed. Remember, if you go back like a week ago or 2 weeks when I came back from a trip, I mentioned
Oh
that
my
I got
God,
dick pic bombed.
Chris,
Remember?
hold
I
on.
wasn't even
Hold
joking.
on. I just figured out the monetization model, which is we just received, every day we're getting tens of thousands of these, and we have to verify it. So you have to, we're going to make sure it's
It's like the
verified. And
mugshot
we
sites.
have, it's like mugshots, exactly. And then you have the website of everybody's, what, and then people Google themselves, they find this, and now they have to pay to take it down. And the person they sent the original photo to gets half the money. Fantastic.
And then
eyeball monetization, yes.
the premium version, Tyler, replaces a picture with a much more well endowed version.
Filtered. So the next big headline is Denver-based Reserve Trust, which enables domestic and international B2B payments, raises $30 million. Who cares? Philadelphia-based Zero Eyes, which uses AI to detect guns, raises $20 million. Series A, led by Octavius. Zero Eyes, a Philly-based provider of an AI-powered weapons detection solution, which may be real AI or artificial intelligence. Could be human enhanced. And the company intends to use the funds led by Mike Lahafi. Zero Eyes provides proprietary weapons detection platform that protects schools, commercial buildings, and government sites from active shooters. Its software integrates into existing security surveillance camera systems and sends out a series of alerts when a verified gun is detected via its weapon detection algorithms. How exactly? Clients include the U.S. Department of Defense, public K-12 school districts, commercial property groups, Fortune 1000 company campuses, shopping malls, etc. I'm curious to see how that works. Would love to see that demo. Okay, next big headline, Roku beats Who Cares? Human Interest, a 401k provider of SMBs that promises zero transaction fees, raises money. A look at Amazon's dilemma around mandating worker vaccinations, which could alienate the many virus skeptics in its warehouse ranks because they employ, over 1 million people. So undoubtedly, many of them are anti-vaccine. And it could alienate the many virus skeptics in its warehouse ranks amid a tight labor market. Makes sense. I don't know that we need to even read the headline or the article. Third wave automation, a startup adding automation tech to forklifts to augment human workers, raises 40 mil. Instacart, my buddy Max, who's an angel investor, one of the many angel investors in Clubhouse, hires longtime Facebook ads chief Carolyn Everson, who left in June as president, starting September 7th, following other high-profile hires from Facebook, including the new CEO of Instacart, also came from Facebook. So no doubt the new CEO who left Facebook is bringing in her friend Carolyn as the president. So there you go. NFT marketplace Maker's Place raises $30 million from Bessemer. Zenny, which offers AI-powered tools to startups to manage finances for a flat monthly fee. AI-powered tools to startups raises $34 million. And then after a report showed Amazon destroying millions of unsold items in the UK. We covered this story about a month ago, 6 weeks ago. You guys remember this? Where a video from a UK Amazon factory showed that when people return items to Amazon, they end up in a warehouse and they destroy the items because they don't, what else to do with it? They end up in landfills. And so a report showed Amazon destroying millions of unsold items. Well, they were sold, but then they were returned. In the UK, Amazon introduces 2 programs to reduce waste, including reselling used items. Well, there you go. Jesus, was that so hard? Holy cow. Build Dots, which uses computer vision to modernize construction management, raises 30. And then Atlanta-based Full Story, which offers analytics tools to improve user experience, raises. After criticism from China, Tencent says it will limit playing time on its flagship Honor of Kings. This is a wild one. So the biggest gaming company in terms of owning lots of smaller games and all kinds of games is Tencent, based out of China. And Tencent says it will now limit the playing time on its flagship game, Honor of Kings, for people under 18 years of age in China to 1 hour per day. And that 1 hour cannot be after 10 p.m. because you're not allowed to play it at all after 10 p.m. And how do they do that? With your facial recognition. If you want to use this game, you have to register your face with SenseTime, which is what Tencent's using. They have this huge database of everybody's face in China. And so when you turn on your game, they say, you're under 18. You cannot play this game past 10 p.m. Boom, done. You're done. And now they will limit your gameplay to 1 hour per day during the daytime from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Why are they doing that? Because China doesn't want people to be, quote unquote, isolated. Their own words. Video game addiction, opiate of the masses, is causing isolation. That's their words. Why is that a problem? Because they have a declining birth rate. So Tencent's playing along, because if they don't, they could likely, if anyone who doesn't play along is going to get crushed, and they've already been crushed. There was a headline yesterday that the leader of Tencent has lost $14 billion in the last few months. That's how much the company's valuation has declined on the stock market, because when the headline came out 48 hours ago that China's cracking down on video games, Tencent, everyone knows in China knows that's Tencent. Tencent's the big apex predator in video games. And if China's cracking down on video games, there goes, a huge percentage of Tencent's valuation. And so they're playing along, kind of a compromise. Let's cut people down to 1 hour a day. Is that enough? Can we let them play for an hour a day, Uncle G? That won't cause isolation. That won't hurt the birth rate, will it? So,
and make sure by 10 o'clock you're tucked up in bed reading the Communist Manifesto.
Yeah, by the way, one of the stock genres, verticals that spiked yesterday in China, anyone want to guess what it is? Plays it right into this whole thesis that China's cracking down, and that it's all about the birth rate, fundamentally. This is my big argument, which, by the way, Ray Dalio came out yesterday. Did I read that in this room yesterday? Ray Dalio is one of the biggest investors on the planet, easily top 10, probably top 5. So, biggest hedge fund manager on the planet, heavily invested in China. He comes out and says, the headline is from CNBC, tech investor or U.S. investors and journalists fundamentally misunderstand what's happening with the China tech crackdown. That it is about the declining birth rate, just as I've been ranting here in this room for 4 days now. And Ray Dalio felt it necessary to come out and do an interview on CNBC to say exactly what I've been saying, is you fucking boneheads, Bloomberg and TechCrunch, don't understand the fundamentals of what's going on here. And if you do understand the fundamentals of what's going on here, it's a huge opportunity. But you don't, so now you're thinking, I'm not touching China with a 50-foot pole. We're all running away. That's fine. You can run away, and you probably should if you don't understand what's going on. But if you understand what's going on, and you understand it's about the birth rate, then you can start to ask very intelligent questions about, China's moving the markets in tremendously fast ways on a day-by-day basis. And yesterday, one genre on the stock market, one vertical exploded. Can you guess what it is? Sports.
Comfortable beds, I was going to say, Todd.
Sport, alarm clocks. No, sports exploded. Anything to do with sports. All the sporting companies, because when you're not allowed to play video games anymore, you're probably going to get into sports. So this whole sporting vertical exploded yesterday, again, because the folks on the ground there in China understand what's going on, which is they want to fix the birth rate. It's a huge, huge issue, the hugest issue. And that's why they cracked down first on the cost of education for the kids, as Ray Dalio said in his CNBC interview very explicitly. And then they're cracking down on the cost of housing to, have multi-bedroom houses. And then they're cracking down on the amount of video game time that you're playing, because it causes isolation. And yet sports is booming, and they're giving additional funding, incentives, economic incentives to have more kids. It's super obvious if you take the time to investigate what's really going on and talk to people on the ground. And Ray Dalio is on the ground. He's investing billions of dollars in China. So he wrote a book recently about China, just to give you an idea of how well Ray Dalio understands China. So,
And we need to do what China's doing too. That's the takeaway.
well, by the way, the other interesting element is that we read yesterday, a really wild headline, is that China's now using their ministries around arts and culture against TikTok and their version of Twitter, which is called Weibo. So their version of TikTok called Douyin and Weibo, think of it as TikTok and Twitter. That's what they are. They're perfect carbon copy clones. So the TikTok and Twitter in China are now coming under the heat of the government and their ministries of art and culture saying, we need access to your algorithms because we need to optimize what content people are seeing. We don't want them seeing vulgar content, aka twerking or anything like that, or celebrity gossip. Get it out of your apps. And we're going to start punishing and banning that content. We don't want vulgar, what they're calling vulgar content, which is nonsense, stupid content. And we want them to, believe it or not, their actual words were, we need to highlight and emphasize Marxist literary criticism. That's literally their own words. So we need to engage better art and culture and books and art. And that's what we want these algorithms to highlight, not goddamn twerking videos. Their own words inside of TikTok, inside of Twitter. We got to fix these algorithms because these algorithms are poisoning the minds of the future generation and it's hurting the country.
Tyler?
Go ahead.
Oh, it was a very
Can
interesting
I?
statement that you brought up about algorithms, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this because what you're describing with algorithms and TikTok and all this other stuff, I've also heard it with the algorithm, like even the algorithm on Clubhouse. You know, you get to a point where Clubhouse has so many wonderful people and wonderful talent and wonderful information in here. But in some ways, it's like you've got to navigate this algorithm because if not, your hallway's going to look like shit. Do you know what I'm saying? Like at some point, can't there be something done also to make sure that the algorithm, or at least make the algorithm better to bring you the better quality content? Instead of making it only about like, oh my God, it's bringing you crappy content. And on that point, I might have answered my own question. If AI is taking in all the content you're looking at and assuming that that is your normal behavior of content you like to watch and listen to. And I think it was Design Juju that said this a couple of months ago, memory like an elephant. I think it was Design Juju that said this a month or two ago about how music, like sometimes I want to listen to hip hop and like rap and twerking music, but I just want to listen to it because I just want to listen to it, right? And maybe sometimes I listen to it for different reasons than what someone may assume I'm listening to it for. And I think that when an algorithm, like Spotify, for example, hears me listen to something, they don't really know why I'm listening to it. And then in some ways, they could be providing me with incorrect suggestions because they may be assuming what's inside my mind or body of why I'm listening to that music or why I'm reading this certain article or why I'm doing this certain action. And I think this is where I have a question mark in my head about the validity of these algorithms being as accurate because there is still the human condition that is doing things.
But
So
maybe,
I wanted
but maybe
to
they,
kind of,
sorry.
I was going to mention, I mean, in a related theme, if you will, to what Ame just talked about in terms of really understanding the reason why. So, but I want to go back to these economic incentives that the government is, offering to people, whether it's around education or housing or, so that's the economic piece. Like, okay, if we make it less expensive to have children, then people will have more children. If we stop people from twerking and we kind of we fill their minds with the values that we want them to have, that will create a more wholesome society. But I also struggle with this notion of, I just don't know that people would want to have more than one child because most of the people of childbearing age are only children themselves. And so there needs to be something more intrinsic to understanding the psyche, so that it may not always, it may not all be about economic. I could see if, let's say, these were communities of Mormon people, or communities where people have historically
Or
had
Amish.
or Amish,
By the
where
way,
people
hold on. Look at that.
right.
Look at those examples. When you have a community of Mormons and Amish, then you have a community to raise the children, not just the nuclear parents who want to
Absolutely.
True,
work.
Yes.
Which is
but
why,
Tyler,
as Lakeisha well knows, here in Thailand, the grandparents raise the kids, so the
Yeah.
parents are able to still work.
but
So it's
then we
not
go back to the
you're
family system.
not sacrificing your job to have kids.
But then we go to the family
But my
system.
point is that
Lakeisha's right.
they didn't grow up with this notion of, oh, I have 10 aunts and
My,
uncles.
yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
I have my four grandparents. So why would I even think to want to have a bigger family? And so I think maybe it's the cultural piece. I think the tricky
I think
part,
it's the
without
cultural piece too.
without forcing people to have more than one children, more than one child. I think that the tricky piece to all of this is to really get inside of the heads of the people, so that they have a desire, because they don't come from a place of having had large families, and so this will be a novel kind of pivot for the entire
Well, check
society.
But
this
there
out.
might,
To,
but there might be much more than this, because if you go, one thing is the desire. If you look at what China has been doing, for example, with the one child, policy, and then going up and this up now, and if you translate that into using science on the AI side to actually know that, the AI might be smarter than yourself about what you really want and how you really feel. And then, of course, you can add on some fiscal stimulus, because a lot of families might not choose to have children because of responsibility or because of the financial burden of it. And there, of course, you can have then, it goes back to what the moral instance is behind the AI steering overall. Is it a government which has power intentions, which has, let's say, also on the growth sides, growth stimulus, financial intentions, or is it just a community caring for each other and supporting each other? There are so many notions to it, but it then boils back to who has the power of steering and driving the AI.
The other point here is we mentioned when we meet twice a day here for many hours each time. You click on the title of the room to see our schedule. And when we met last time, which about 15 hours ago, John was in the room, who's is a kind of medical lab geek, and the idea of, could we figure out a way to kind of make twins out of, instead of having singular kids as humans do, we could have twins or triplets of four, like many animals do. Dogs, very notably, have litters. And what if we could control so that you only, if everyone were to have twins, well, it's incrementally more inconvenient than having, if you're going to commit to having one child and you're going to block out a few years of your life committed to raising a child, why not do two simultaneously? If we could do that in a lab where everyone has twins in China, you could double the birth rate very quickly, and that would solve their problem. So I'm even going out on a limb as a soft prediction that they're at least pursuing that angle, which is not technically far-fetched. Yeah.
Tyler, could I just comment on that?
Yeah.
Because what you're just saying made my stomach turn. Like, honestly, for every woman in this audience that's had children, is that not just nuts that they would start to look at the possibility of a woman going through labor with two children that could potentially kill her? That doesn't even resonate with me. That just sounds so absurd, because, that is such a process that is so, feminine, so deeply entrenched in
you can chill out.
body.
This is 100% opt-in. So for women who
Oh, wow,
want
that's
to have
crazy,
twins, they can do it.
That's different.
Well, there's
If they
only
want
one
to opt
country.
in,
That's,
There's
sure.
only
that's
one
why I wanted
country
to
on the
end your
planet.
rant preemptively, because
All right, no, that's fine. That's fine.
I'm
That's
not
fine.
going to force people to have twins. Yeah.
But you never
There's
know,
only one.
Tyler. You never know.
There's only one country on the planet that guarantees women up to two births with free in vitro fertilization, and that's Israel. And there are those of us who are, no pregnancies, no future, right? And there's something kind of very disgusting about societies in which you have whole populations, particularly of higher IQ people, who are electing not to have children, and that raises all kinds of interesting questions for your future. So, China is not, I am not a fan of China, and China is not a fan of me. However, I do applaud a lot of these like forward thinking policies of trying to encourage people to have children, trying to encourage affordable family formation. And if you don't have families, you don't have a future in your society. I mean, there's a reason if you draw the charts in the United States in 100 years' time, the majority of the white population is some combination of Orthodox Jewish, Mormon, and Amish. I mean, that is like, those are the people who are showing up and rocking the cradles and taking over the world. And I think
It's
we
also
got to be honest.
communities.
Like,
It's
what's
because
that?
they're also communities, and I think you need communities can raise kids more effectively than nuclear families can. That's a relatively new
Right, but
anthropological
the nuclear
evolution.
family like exists in large measure
Yeah,
because people have to move further and further out,
true.
right? Because they can't afford having a home in a major city.
Yeah, but I'm just
Increasingly,
pointing out
yeah.
why that data is showing the way that it is. Because when you have the support of a community to help you raise kids, you're more likely to have them. And if you're a nuclear family, it's a complete singular burden, and that's a bit heavy burden to carry for folks who want to have a career or whatnot.
Tyler, what
Yeah.
about the family size though? Like in terms of like nuclear family in that context, like we've growing up in a different generation, and as Lakeisha said, we don't. Not everyone understands what it's like to have a big family of cousins and aunties and uncles and stuff like that. How will that nuclear family versus non be able to bring this forward? Because if a community raises a child, right, you're saying also in essence that there'll be there's an assumption the community will be there to raise the child, right?
Yeah.
But what if the family's not that big, and what if it can't become that big? Like if the family doesn't, like if let's say you don't have brothers or sisters, you're an only child.
Yeah.
And then you don't know anything else, like Lakeisha said. But then let's say you have 3 kids. But then those 3 kids just have you and your husband. So it's 5 of you. And maybe the grandparents if they're alive. So at one point, where is the connection to community? Because people, especially now post-COVID, we're so sheltered in place in some ways. We're keeping ourselves in a social distance situation that even children are not even able to play with each other outside in some instances, right? So how will this whole global ecosystem going forward survive?
Yeah. Move to Thailand, raise your kids here. So next article is a lot of the world still, and it's the developing world, is still raising kids in the kind of quote unquote traditional ways. And when they come here, they're like, holy shit, how did we get away from this? So Lakeisha can confirm what I'm talking about. Like,
I'm already an auntie, and I've been in the village for like 6 weeks.
exactly my point. Part-time babysitter, and it's the community raises the kids. And by the way, and this is why Europeans, when they come to Thailand, one of the things they love about it is the parents go into the restaurant, the staff at the restaurant, the aunties come out, take the kids, take them into the kitchen, walk them all around while the parents actually enjoy dinner together for the first time since they've had kids. And the aunties are like, yeah, we're just doing what we do. Is we understand you're going to eat dinner by yourselves. We're going to take the kids. We're going to entertain them, play with them, and you'll be stunned at how good Thai women are with kids. I mean, it's like watching a duck jump into water. It's like
Yeah,
they're
you have
Maybe
the
if the
same thing in Latin America as well, in Mexico and in Colombia. You have the same in Latin America as well, in the Caribbean.
maybe if we
I'm the
didn't have
same in
such a
Southeast
selfish
Asia.
boomer generation, more millennials would have children.
well. Check this
Just
out.
a
But
thought.
I kind of agree with Charles.
imagine walking into Panera and the staff come out and grab your kid and start walking them around. Doing laps
I
around
would
the
be
Panera
there
building.
I would be there
Chris would
every
be like, I'd have a
day.
silent dinner. I
Yeah, you
could be
would.
there.
But the first time that somebody walks up to your kid and they don't speak the same, they don't speak English. You're an English speaker. You walk into Panera and the staff lady walks up to ask you to hand the kid to them kind of insistently. And you'd be like, somebody would make a viral TikTok video that the Panera staff are trying to steal my child. And it would be like a social, headline news item the next day, that the Panera staff are trying to steal my children. So then,
Tyler, doesn't that go back to the helicopter parents and
yeah. This is my point. Is we've gotten away. Parents are just freaked out about letting anyone, even touch their child. Like they'll just.
I'm a stay-at-home dad for that reason. I don't trust anyone around my
Yeah,
children.
that's where it's at.
Not until they could. tell me that somebody touched them where they weren't supposed to,
So check this
and
out. You and Lakeisha can confirm. If you walk into a 7-Eleven, as you do multiple times a day here in Thailand, and there's a child in the 7-Eleven, it's almost softly expected that you touch the child's head and play with its hair and say, "How are you? You know, what are you buying today?" You're supposed to talk to kids and touch them and play with them, even though you're a complete stranger. This is the most ordinary thing in the world in Thailand to do that. So anyway,
It's a very loving culture, Tyler.
yeah, it's
It's
just
kind of like
it's
loving.
almost it's
It's
actually
nice.
like slightly encouraged. Like when the parents are like, "Oh, good, you're playing with my kid." They don't think to anything of it. So anyway, the
that's the
Very, very
bridge. That's
Irish
the
too,
bridge,
yeah.
everybody.
yeah. Anyway, next big headline at this moment is
Tyler,
yes,
a quick question.
yeah,
Just I texted you also separately. We have two people in the room,
yeah,
and is it okay to dive just in because
yeah. Of
this is a
course,
bigger thing in Europe?
yeah.
Okay, thanks. So we have actually uh, Cenk Turkay below. I don't know if it's possible. You can pull him
He
up.
needs to raise
And
his hand. It's a huge audience. I can't
okay,
find him.
yes,
Yeah.
perfect. Cenk, can you please raise your hand, and also Vittorio? So the topic is the following. In Southern Europe now, there are in several countries wildfires because of the
Huge.
heat wave.
Yes.
Yeah, Albania, Italy is huge.
Yeah. I'm
Greece is
I'm
huge.
tweeting one video right now. It's a 24-second video from Greece. You're gonna shit yourself when you see this Greek beach resort on. It looks like hell on earth. Yeah.
Perfect. So if Cenk and Vittorio can raise your hand, so Tyler can pull you up, because the situation in Turkey is even worse. Now that is the fire has spilled over. I shared it also over Twitter. Really, a
Yeah.
coal power plant is now also on fire.
Yes.
Actually, the owner and the CEO,
Let me read
and
the
they're really
headlines.
trying to help.
Just
Yep,
just to
please.
contextualize. From The Guardian, Turkish town evacuated as wildfire reaches power station. The next headline, CNN, brutal heatwave scorches southern Europe as summer extreme weather rages on. And then tensions are really running high in southern Turkey as armed villagers established checkpoints. And if they suspect that you are an arsonist, it gets real very quickly. And there's video of that because the fires are going berserk everywhere. And if they think you're the cause of it, they'll put a very quick end to it because it's, and you got to see the video I just tweeted out from the Greek island of Evia, which is just turned into a tinderbox. And
Rather
it's
So
ironic
act,
that the coal plant burned down due to a wildfire that the coal plant helped start. So.
and so if you could just pull them up, because the thing is the following, Tyler, because
yeah,
both Vittorio and Cenk didn't even know Clubhouse.
yeah,
They reached out to me earlier. I said you could come in, share what's happening on the
yeah. I
ground,
just
because they're
invited
asking
them.
for
They
help.
they got
Yeah.
party hats. They should be on stage now. Welcome, Tank.
Yes,
Yeah.
Cenk is there. Wonderful, Cenk, to have you here. And please, can you maybe frame the situation on the ground and also what you're trying to do? Because apparently certain help which is supposed to come is not coming because it's not allowed to fly in over Turkey.
Hi, hello everyone, and it's my first
We can
clubhouse,
see
but
that.
yeah, and I know how to talk through the microphone
Good.
as
You
best
sound
as I
great.
could. And the situation is critical. There are fires everywhere, and like everywhere in South Mediterranean Sea. But our situation is a little bit more political, as there's a clash between the people and the government, as the government is currently set to prevent all the help that is supposed to offer, that is offered and supposed to come from other neighboring countries, including Israel. I have a confirmed resource with the connections to Israeli government that Israel officially offered help, but our government has refused to get it. Also,
Why is the
it's
government
said
refusing to help?
it is sort of a power play. They don't want to lose their what's the best word to say,
Influence?
credibility
Uh,
against the international arena, let's say, and influence over people. Also, we as you all know, like we have a large army, and even the army is not allowed to intervene to help the people to kill the fires. And right now, we can follow things. I mean, even the media is banned right now from releasing any news related to fires. So it's most of the time Twitter or Instagram that people are using to share information right now.
So I
So
still don't.
That's why I asked Chen to actually join here.
Okay, good. Please help
Tyler,
us
yes.
understand culturally. This makes no sense at all. Why? Try it one more time. Why isn't the government help? This is their tourism area, right, near the Mediterranean.
it is a tourism area.
So they make a lot of money in taxes from this area. Why wouldn't they try and stop the fires?
Well, it's mostly the the forests are burning right
Uh
now,
huh.
and they can convert these forest areas into population areas where they can build hotels and
Okay.
restaurants and whatever. But I mean, I don't know the real reason, to be honest. Right now, the level of democracy has been diminished. Like, as you all know, we are living more like more of autocracy at the moment, and it's just, you know, in the words among the lips of one man right now,
And he doesn't want to
just
stop it, but it's not entirely clear
yeah,
why they're, because, like you said, you have a very huge armed forces, and you're
correct.
not in a war right now, so you're not. It's not an
Yep.
issue of human capital to put it out, and there's, um, yeah, this is really
Exactly.
peculiar. Maybe they're not. Are fires not common there, and they don't know, they don't have the skills to do it. Although it's, I think
Well,
anyone.
the biggest issue is right now there is a Turkish Air Society which was founded by the Republic's founder Atatürk, and we currently have our own flights, like firefighters available, firefighting planes available, but the government is not letting them to fly, and the president said very clearly that we don't have these aircrafts available. Although the opposition party went to the air base and showed on Instagram that these aircrafts are actually
Okay, so
available and
there's
not
some
flying.
serious corruption worthy of journalism in this case. It seems, yeah.
That's
Can I
correct.
jump? Can I
Yep,
jump in for a second?
please do.
Of course.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the world. The situation right now in Turkey has turned out to be a situation where the current government is trying to maintain its power over the people who are electing them. And since last year, there are several news and several discovered corruption files and many other situations that are putting them in difficulties. Therefore, right now, they are going around the world with a new hashtag called Strong Turkey that are pretending that the fire is under control and they are strong enough to put everything over and to kill the fires because they are losing an important power. On the other hand, as Cenk mentioned, the area is an area that the only way you can go and build hotels, resorts, or any other thing is only if it burns and the place is available for that, so they can go through with it. The media is banned because my wife is working in a media company. The media is banned. Actually, the media has received a very severe letter from the government that in case they go on air with information and videos about the fires, they will be strongly punished and they can lose even their licenses. The fires are not getting extinguished right now. It's everything, unfortunately, is going, including the power center. The help from the world is neglected. They are only accepting help to demonstrate that they are doing so only from countries that they have serious relationship, like Azerbaijan or Iran or etc. Greece, Italy, Spain. I mean, Spain have sent some power. Australia faced the same thing, and they launched the world to help them
Right,
because they wanted to stop it as early as possible
of
because they
course.
didn't want it to advance. Otherwise, even Australia could manage to extinguish the fires in a way, but they would have lost a lot of their forest.
I
Vittorio, quick question. I also shared on Twitter, Tyler, actually shared by another one, a video where you can see now that civilian people are blocking the roads and they're looking for people or whoever could look like wanting to set a fire. they're trying to chase. So it's a really
The
there's even more
ministry
to it, correct?
the Ministry of Internal Affairs has officially declared that right now they haven't found any information related to any possible arsenation or anything else. But there is so much misinformation thanks to the social media that right now the people is so much stressed about possible fires that would continue. They lost their farms, they lost their houses, they lost their animals, they lost their lives. That unfortunately, right now, even if you get caught entering to that area and you have, I don't know, matches in your pocket, you are a possible arsonist and you can really lose your life because you can be beaten up to death.
Okay, so there's two articles that just came out on this topic. One from the Guardian, and the headline is "Anger in Turkey Grows Over Government's Handling of Wildfires," which you're very much confirming. Response of Erdogan's ruling party seen by many as out of touch as blazes rage for seventh day. People across Turkey are looking for answers as to how summer wildfires got so desperately out of control after 7 straight days of unusually ferocious fires that continue to blaze throughout the south and west of the country. 8 people, including 2 firefighters, have died. Strong winds, low humidity, and scorching temperatures. And then somebody says, "I'm begging for 5 days, dying and begging for the authorities to help," said one distraught resident of a village near the resort town of Marmaris, who lost his house in a video clip widely shared on Twitter. "There was not even one fire engine here. They said they will help when the fire comes near homes. Well, here you go. It came near my home. How on earth can such a government exist? Now they say I should fix my house. Goddamn all of them. If they have any fear of God or conscience, they should resign." And then the next article, it says wildfires in Turkey, operation against the government. The Turkish government and the state have challenged repeatedly since 2013. Many domestic, regional, and global campaigns are initiated to weaken the capability of Turkey. The country was discussed even during the election. Here it says strong
This is
Turkey.
this
Yeah,
is how
yeah.
they are trying to manipulate now what is happening there,
Okay.
because there will be an election in 2023 unless it's not somehow anticipated, and now that's what they're trying to manipulate, saying that this is made against the government to weaken them and etc. Unfortunately, yesterday, still the president on TV, while he was saying many irrelevant things, one of the things he said that he is evaluating yet to equip the choppers they have, like Skorsky and the other choppers they have in the army, with some equipment that it will enable them to pour water on the fire. I mean, it's really incredible what is happening in our country. We are patriots. We love this country. Cenk as well. All the YPO
Meeting
members
with
in
the
our
UN right
community,
now, so
and we are sourceless. As a businessman, if I'm ready to pay €500,000 to rent an available chopper that has the capacity to throw water, the government is banning me. I have the letters in my hand that
And when you say
I'm not authorized.
hang on, when you say government, you mean the federal government.
The existing ruling government,
I understand you.
not the
Okay, so
opposition party. Or
this is not this is not an issue of federal government versus local government.
It is an issue of the current governing party, which the president also belongs, against the public and the opposition party,
Got it.
more or
And so
less.
the federal government is claiming that the opposition party is causing the fires.
No, the government is, the government is blaming the municipalities that are controlled by the opposition government
Well, let me ask you
party.
something.
Yeah.
Could it be possible that the opposition party is uh, playing some role? They want to show that the current regime is incapable. They want to demonstrate this, and so they don't want the fires to stop. That this is why they're not stopping.
in politics, everything may be possible, but there is one
Yes.
reality right now.
Which is
The forest that is burning right now, it's an ecosystem of the world. It's not only the ecosystem of Turkey.
yeah.
And I truly do not believe that the opposition party, just to through this current regime, is taking a risk of
Okay.
putting the world the Turkey
But
in
who's
a condition that only 25 years we can recover, maybe.
so
I don't think so.
Victorio? Let me ask you real quickly: is it when you say even if you had the money to get an airplane or a helicopter of water to fix this, that somebody would stop you? The people that stop you, is it the opposition party
It's the
or the current
it's
regime?
the current regime, the
The
Ministry of
current
Forest.
regime.
Okay, interesting.
The mayors of the opposition party controlled cities came together. There are 11 of them, and they said, like, the municipalities have the funds and the resources to rent those planes from the government and start operating them. And they officially sent a letter to the government for this approach, and we don't know what's the outcome of it, but most probably it will be refused. And the the most incredible thing is that there are either 13 or 17 planes that are available right now, sitting at a national air base that is controlled by the government, and the government is not letting those planes fly.
Right. So I got you, and it looks like Bodrum is part of this, yeah, and that is perhaps
That's correct.
the most valuable tourist city in
And
Turkey.
Marmaris is the second one.
Yeah, this is wild because you're losing some of your most valuable tourist locations.
Yeah, Tyler, also
Yeah.
want to be clear here. Cenk and Vittoria are successful entrepreneurs, CEOs, run their companies there. And for both of you to voice it loud and clear and go out is a lot of great courage. I just
Yeah,
want to say that because it's
it
not
is brave.
normal.
I understand the context, and thank you, Florian. Yeah, thank you for
Well,
sharing what's happening
thank you,
there.
Florian, and thank
Yeah,
you, Tyler, and thank you everyone for listening.
yeah.
I
Thank you
just
for
have
no, no,
one
no. Thank you,
request for help.
thank you
Yeah.
for sharing. This is
Thank you.
it's gonna we're gonna continue to watch this now with additional perspective on the ground. Which again, it seems like even the article that somebody sent me was an example of what you're saying, which is kind of misinformation, where it was kind of trying to say, oh, there were fires and we put them out and everything's okay, and I'm seeing it myself. There,
But Tyler, you see, for example, as much as ugly way, costing lives, here's exactly the same in a different way. Climate change, the people itself, and now you might go in even people chasing each other on the ground like a civil war type of thing, just to check whether you might be the one setting up the fires or not, because that's what social media says, or that's what the government is trying to influence, which is really, really amazing.
so
Yes.
why did the Erdogan, when it says, according to the Guardian, which is a legitimate publication, and you're right, there's a real notable lack of journalism around this because they're being blocked, it seems, as you said. But Erdogan caused bewilderment by throwing packets of Turkish tea from a moving bus at passerby um, in relation to this damaged area in Marmaris. Why is he throwing packets of tea at people? What is that? Is that symbolic of something?
That is
Well,
idiotic.
I don't know, neither Jen nor me, that we can give an
Yeah,
answer to that.
we don't know the reason
I
for that.
honestly don't know. But what I can tell you is the following: that within the current regime and the ruling party, probably there is an important part of the members that actually they want to get rid of Erdogan. So they are also complotting him as well. But there is one problem. They are trying to get rid the members of the party ruled by Erdogan from Erdogan, because they want to go to bring Turkey to a more far extremist
Oh wow!
situation, or they just want to get rid because they are fed up with the things that are happening through him with the world. We have no friends left, neighbor countries, and etc. This is one of the most important questions to understand.
Yeah,
Do they want to get rid of him because they believe he's not enough extremist, or do they just want to bring back Turkey into what 20 years ago used to be a flourishing country with more than 35%, 25 years age, young population, dynamic population, strategic geographical position? This is something we don't know. We even don't trust the opposition parties, because We, it is
Wow.
said that even the opposition parties now, all four of them, they are around the table with Erdogan negotiating that bringing back the parliamentary system is possible if only they guarantee Erdogan that he will not be prosecuted. So there are many things going on. We have
Wow.
lots of information, but the biggest problem is the following. I truly do not believe that there is an arsenism in this because you see Greece is on fire, Italy is on fire, Ukraine is on
Right.
fire,
Good point
many
there,
other
Alex.
countries is on fire, and nobody is sitting around the table to discuss about this climate change because probably in 2022 as the weather goes like this, we will have more fires around the world. This
For
can
sure.
bring humanity to starvation. This can bring many other problems. But now we
She has a phone. He has a phone.
Oh, somebody called him.
Yeah.
Great points he's making, though.
Lakisha,
And
can you switch off your
can I
hotline?
just add something? Also, maybe we should mention that also thousands of Afghani immigrants are entering into the country, including Taliban,
Oh, because the
for the time
Taliban came
being
into
every day.
Afghanistan, many of the Afghanistans are going into Turkey.
Yeah, and the US is
Yeah.
chickening out.
Yeah, but what? So what?
I just read today that in a truck there were 300 people captured in one single truck. Imagine 300 people
No.
coming into
Wow.
Turkey.
Wow.
And those people are everywhere and nobody knows who they are, what they are. Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
there are
wild.
definitely some extremists among them.
Yeah, wild. Okay. Well, we will keep a close eye on this as it develops.
And
And please,
before I
yeah,
before I finish, can I just ask for some help?
yeah.
I'm trying to reach out to the company called Supertankers LLC. It is acquired recently by a company called National Airlines. That Supertankers is a aircraft, is a 747 aircraft that is specifically designed for firefighting, and which has done very successful operations in the last couple of years. But I think during COVID time, the aircraft was sold and acquired by a company in Orlando called National Airlines. So if anyone knows anybody in that company or have any relevant information, I'll be happy to receive it. I mean, I don't know how I can leave my email address here. If there's an address that I can text, I'll be happy to share it.
You can put it in your,
text it to Florian. Text it
yeah,
to Florian
put it to Florian.
over
And
the
Or
Florian
chat.
can put it in his bio. Yeah.
okay, great.
Yes, and also please connect also on your profile to your Twitter or Instagram so that people
Oh,
can
okay,
follow up outside of Clubhouse
Yeah.
and then also can text you. Absolutely.
Smart.
that's
Well,
amazing.
I will be honest with you. Recently, we started a hashtag about the global call, Help Turkey. And am I heard?
Yes, we hear you fine.
Okay.
Yes.
Our intention is to draw attention around the world, and due to political tensions, if any country was not interested in helping Turkey, with the pressure created by the population of Turkey, that they should not be able to refuse, instead just to try to help and come. However, today the government had declared that they will start prosecutions for everybody who shared this hashtag.
Wow.
So I'm afraid we can all, me and Cenk, we can link our Instagram profile. I don't use Twitter. I'm just a follower. I'm using it, just a follower. But you may not be seeing so much
Right.
shared by us because if they say
Um,
they do so, they do so. I'm afraid.
wow.
But
Okay.
maybe Tyler, we can help you in a way, not exposing Cenk or
Right. Of
Vittorio.
course. Yeah.
But if you, for example, DM certain things directly to me or to Tyler, we can make sure this is voiced through tech news around the world as
Right.
a instance, not a person.
Yep.
People don't know where it comes from. But by the way, that happens a lot, in the same sense.
Yeah.
Tyler, I
The
just tweeted you your
BBC
Times
Turkey
article.
Mm.
BBC Turkey right now seems to appear the only media that through Instagram or Twitter They are fearlessly going around everywhere where the fire is, and they're putting everything on the social media. BBC Turkey.
Tyler, the New York Times, they just tweeted this article to Tech News. The headline is Turks wage war on social media as raging fires turn political. That's from the New York Times.
Yeah. Wild how you could turn a fire into a political thing. I mean, it seems like everyone would be aligned to put them out and put politics aside over
Stop
that.
that.
It's wild.
It's simply they're saying we were going extremely okay, we were ruling the country in a perfect way, and people who are disturbed from this, including foreign powers, they are just trying to put us on our knees and putting these fires by putting this in that we are
Yeah. Well, it's a real sadness. I
uh, eligible, we are not organized.
Yeah, your connection seems weak.
Well, it was a great honor to be heard
No, it's a
and
great
to
honor
be
to
listened.
for you to thank. It's the pleasure's all ours, and
Yeah.
thank
Join
you.
us whenever you
Thank you for
can.
your time.
Yes, thank you
Yes, and
guys.
it's an amazing feeling to speak to so many people at my very first Clubhouse
Thanks.
experience.
I just want to say
Yeah,
I spent a little time in Istanbul, and it was an incredible experience that was, and so I was actually planning to spend time in Bodrum, and that's why when I see that it's part of the fires, it really hits me. It's personally in a way. I'm not to the degree that it's hurting you guys
Well,
as
Bodrum is mostly safe. That's what we heard.
yeah,
I mean, I'm currently located in Los Angeles, so that's why I'm in a much safer
yeah.
place, and I can
It,
be exposed. That's fine,
but it's
Hey,
as
really.
Tyler,
long I feel
the
safe
mayor of
here.
Bodrum is quoted in the Washington Post. Do you want me to send that to you?
Can you
Because
read what he said?
Yes, please.
yeah, basically, he or she said that that it's pretty much so bad that they can't really do anything anymore, and they're trying to save the residents or something. They can't. But I have to go actually just bring it up again. Give
Yeah,
me a second.
yeah.
they are trying to evacuate since yesterday, almost midnight hours, something like 11,000 people,
Well,
because the
The
evacuation is going through where the power center is,
Yeah, the
and
power
there
plant is
are
not very far
yeah,
from
yeah,
here.
and
I have a YouTube video right now that I just tweeted where the Turkey wildfires threaten the Bodrum power plant. It's a video, and it will scare the shit out of you. The flames are, I don't know, 50 meters high or something. It's unbelievable.
And
the
there's an environmental effect. There are like thousands of tons of coal there, and if these coals start to burn inside, it can be even toxic to people
Right.
around it.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Hashtag.
Here's the quote, Tom. Do you
Go
want
ahead,
me to
Ken.
read it?
Yeah.
Bodrum Mayor Amit Aris said Sunday evening. Oh, this is Sunday evening, so this is. I mean, this has got to be earlier.
Yep.
The people experience hell near Kokertiem. I can't even pronounce it. Kokertiem and Matzi as they drove away from the fire. He said the blaze could not be stopped and hoped to protect residential areas, but said it was too late for the trees. But there was another one I saw more recently. I want to find that one.
Yeah. I read one where he says it's too late. Like we need help now, but it's too late.
Pretty much, yeah. He was saying like they can't fight it from the ground, and it's
Yeah.
even
There's no
too
way
late.
to get in. He said. Yeah.
by the type of the trees that are mostly very frequent in that area, that are mostly type of several types of pines, unless you are not able to kill the fire at a very early stage, I'm afraid that once it goes over a certain dimension, the only way is using any air
Right.
equipped,
This.
and we don't have this.
Right.
Nobody can go through nobody can climb the mountains. So what happens? The fire, the winds are not helping as well.
Right.
So everything is coming down.
I got
We
it.
don't have enough airplanes. That's it.
Right, right,
Period.
right. The
Uh,
roads are inaccessible, and so you can't bring in fire trucks. So you have to do it with special water dropping airplanes, which you don't have, and they won't let them even use the airplanes you do have, and thus everything's burning. And it's but we got it now. and we got to move on. But I'll certainly be sitting with us for a while, and we'll certainly be paying close attention and doing. Hopefully, anyone in the audience listening and on stage, we'll do whatever anyone's able to do to support. And just again, appreciate the local
Thank
context
you
of
very
what's
much,
happening, because
Daniel.
it's a really
Thank
wild
you.
scenario that we just aren't not able to.
Yeah, it is no longer a problem of Turkey. It is a problem. It's an ecosystem. It's an environmental
Yeah,
situation that
yeah,
Turkey is going through, surrounded by neighbor countries having the same problem.
yep,
If we manage to survive, people like Cenk, people like me, people like all the valuable members of the YPOs in Turkey, we will definitely bring back Turkey to what it used to be. It's gonna take us some time. It's gonna be still some painful situations unless we don't face other risks.
yeah.
But please listen to our voice, try to help us spread our voice, be our loudspeakers. We don't care who is ruling the country unless it's ruling it okay. We just want our country to be safe, and the
Got it.
people and the animals and the forest and every single alive and breathing thing in this territory. That's all. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Vittorio, and
Thank you.
thank you, Sank, and thanks,
Thank you very
Florian, for
much.
bringing them in. That was fantastic.
Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah. So the other stuff happening at the moment, I tweeted out to the Twitter account the videos that Poppy and others are sharing of from the Guardian, and just watch these videos. Holy cow! You'll get a sense. You can hear it in their voices, because they understand what's going on. And there's a whole bunch of tweets, about 10 of them, that I'm sending out literally right now, from all the coverage that people are finding. Like Ken found the New York Times, and these videos are just mind blowing, even as somebody in Southern California, where we have similar things happening each year. But you know, it's different in this case because it's a big tourist area that's going to get gobbled up, and that's going to have, man, a lot of for those who don't know, the Americans don't know, a lot of Europeans go to Bodrum, because it's a fantastic city. Anyway, that would be a real shame to lose such a beautiful city. So
Tyler,
yes,
that's a very interesting. I've been listening intently to Vittorio because, as a yoga teacher, Bodrum is one of the most beautiful places that we take clients to. So I've been listening intently, also trying to find a way that I could spread this to the yoga community in the U.S. because they tend to choose that as a location for retreats as well as in Europe. So I'm just really sad to hear this.
yeah. For those Americans don't know about Bodrum, but Europeans sure do. So
The yogis do.
Yeah. I mean, world travelers do. It's one of the world's special cities, and that's real sadness. So the other news happening at this very moment is we got the human rights one. NFTs could go even more mainstream with Shopify's latest move into non-fungible tokens have shot to popularity in the past year. Shopify's move to facilitate sales might bring them even further into the mainstream. And somebody mentioned a news item yesterday about them opening up a new location in Chelsea, in Manhattan. And indeed, my friend Carl, who sold his company to Shopify, it lives in New York City, and he had some photos on his Instagram. So I got a little look at it, and they have the Kaching Cafe inside, as they call it. And it looks like a very cool area and a futuristic concept of, engaging with the Shopify ecosystem physically on the ground. It's a really interesting, forward-looking concept. And then Heyman shared one from when the headline is. It just went boom. Florida ICUs are being overwhelmed with younger and sicker patients. 6 out of the 8 patients are younger than 50 years old. None of them have been vaccinated against COVID. And Florida ICUs are now magically all booked up with younger folks because Delta, for whatever reason, is not only more aggressive, but is able to target a younger demographic. And so Florida's now dealing with the cards it's been dealt. And I as I've been screaming about, about a month ago that this was going to come, and it's just unfortunate. But and no doubt we'll just have to keep updated on Florida and Texas, which are now the two hotspots. As I, as with anyone that follows this room regularly knows, I screamed and shouted and said it's coming. This Delta tsunami is coming, and not only the Delta tsunami coming, now the Delta plus tsunami is coming, and there's new cases of that in Southeast Asia, and that's even worse news. So, Dan, did you have kind of separate green tech news you wanted to share?
Well, I just comment that the climate tsunami is going to be, 100 or 1,000 times bigger than the COVID tsunami, and we need to get ready. We need to act on that, like we're trying to act on COVID, and we're not doing it. It's kind of frustrating. But this gives you a little bit of. Some of you might know who Saul Griffith is. He's written a lot of different things, including climate. And David Wallace Wells just tweeted this out. He was talking about the amount of CO2 we have produced. And Saul Griffith has suggested, imagine it all like this. If you had a giant set of scales and put all the things humans make or move on one side, and all of the CO2 we produce on the other side, the CO2 wins. In other words, the CO2 weighs more than everything we make or move. It's kind of mind-blowing to think about. So anyway, I also tweeted you the images of Greece and stuff like that, the burning that's happening around the world. So I would suggest, I don't know if I mentioned it yesterday, but if you are in the U.S., this is the time to act. The Senate is considering putting carbon pricing in the reconciliation bill. And there's a very easy way to write your senators and call them is by going to citizensclimatelobby.org/Senate. And it will actually even compose an email for you and give you the telephone numbers. It makes it super easy. You can do it in 5 minutes. And now is the time to act. So thanks.
Yeah. So next.
Hey, Tyler, I just wanted to actually thank you, by the way, because in terms of the other day when you described how Thailand and the experience with COVID, the difference between the Alpha and the Delta, and how everyone was wearing masks, and still, I mean, it was so instructive to understand, what was going to happen here and how Delta was different than the original Alpha variant. It was just, it's very, very helpful.
Yeah, it's hard to paint the picture for someone I'm just trying to give you a window as to what's going on here so that you can take whatever precautions you can. And watch out for Delta Plus. Jesus, this could get even crazier than it is right now with Delta, believe it or not. So everyone's watching the data on Delta Plus, and the real big concern at the moment for a lot of the epidemiologists is that all of this huge petri dish called Texas and Florida, that's enough people that it could likely cause multiple variations. And what will those variations potentially lead to if they become impervious to the vaccines? And even
and that's the concern with Lambda. They think that Lambda get around the vaccine even more than Delta.
Yeah, there was a report that Lambda's a bit less, more resistant to vaccines, and that's a very big concern. And the widening demographic where it is affecting younger folks demographically. So,
And,
Tyler?
Yeah.
Tyler, did you manage to see the article for that WHO is urging the rich countries not to take the booster shots because that will reduce the capacity for those countries that don't have access to even the first shot?
Interesting. So WHO is telling countries don't take booster shots, give any surplus that you have to countries that have not yet had the luxury of their first or second shots, which is a great point because Thailand has only had not even done all of their first shots yet. In fact,
Tyler first.
Africa's not had their first shots yet, and here we are. Talk about, if people want to talk about privilege, let's talk about global privilege. Many countries are now contemplating their third shots when everyone else hasn't had their first, and it's an interesting point. So the next, thanks for that, Cheryl. The next one I wanted to get into was a passenger on a flight, passengers on a flight duct tape one of the other passengers to his seat after in-air flight on a Frontier Airlines plane. Maxwell Berry was arrested at an airport in Miami after he allegedly groped two flight attendants and then got into a physical altercation with a third, and the passengers duct taped Mr. Maxwell Berry to his seat for the remainder of his flight. Someone had a roll of duct tape.
That's also with the flight attendants did it too, and they got suspended. But
Yeah.
the guy, they see the video of it. He was pretty violent. I mean, this guy should have been contained somehow. So
Duct tape.
Sure.
I like it.
Yeah.
Kenya's Wapi Pay raises 2.2 million pre-seed for cross-border payments between Africa and Asia, where it is more expensive to send money to sub-Saharan Africa than any region in the world. It's also the most expensive region to send money from, and that's just absolutely wrong. And kudos to Wapi Pay to addressing this injustice. And hopefully that Messi, you clapping?
Yes.
Yeah. If we can fix that alone, they're just being unfairly taxed as it is, and technologically taxed, and let's remove that so that they can join the game. This one coming in from someone named Kale Padel sends in. Made in China products are running into logistics problems from CNBC. Access to cheap manufacturing in China is becoming a disadvantage for some Chinese businesses selling overseas due to the pandemic and trade tensions. And it says Chinese home appliances company Hisense has big plans to sell more goods overseas, but it said global shipping congestion has multiplied costs and caused delays. It's not been easy generally for Chinese multinationals. Out of about 3,400 Chinese companies that operate internationally, about 200 make more than 1 billion in sales overseas. And however, Alibaba's international e-commerce platform AliExpress claims it hasn't seen delays or costs rise for cross-border selling thanks to cargo charters. Chinese companies wanting to go global are running into shipping problems. Access to cheap manufacturing at home gave Chinese businesses an advantage overseas, but is turning into a disadvantage now as the pandemic and trade tensions disrupt international supply chains. Many goods can't be shipped out, said Fang Zhuyu, vice president of the international marketing and general manager for the Asia Pacific at China home appliance company Hisense. The cost of shipping containers has climbed fivefold from about $3,000 to as much as $15,000 each. Holy cow. While it takes about a week longer for them to get to Europe, she said at a Mandarin language interview last month. From the Suez Canal congestion in March to the reemergence of COVID cases around the major Chinese export hub of Guangzhou, which is near Hong Kong and Shenzhen in the bay. There's a big bay there between Macau and Hong Kong called Guangzhou. And in June, logistical disruptions have hit global trade one after another. What you have in Europe, what you have around the world, I wouldn't call it chaos, but a lot of disruptances in the logistics system, said Alexander Close, executive vice president of overseas operations at Chinese electric car startup iWays. So we had to rebook shifts, we had to delay shifts because no ships were available, no containers were available. That's definitely impacted us. He told CNBC, for the company which makes its cars in China and sells to Europe, Close said that the disruptions delayed some shipments by 2 to 3 months just because cars were sitting in a port and not being transported. Foreign demand for Chinese-made products has remained strong, both by companies' accounts and official data. According to company and official data, the customs agency said in the first half of the year, exports to the EU rose 35.9% from a year ago, while those to the U.S. climbed 42%. Hisense remains keen to expand abroad and made $8 billion in international market during the pandemic last year. By 2025, the company said it aims to triple the contribution from overseas markets to $23 billion. But the shipping delays mark the latest challenge of Chinese companies to face in trying to reach international markets. Out of 3,400 Chinese companies that operate internationally, only 200 make more than $1 billion. And logistic supply chain issues go beyond semiconductors is kind of the sense of that. And the next big article is about the voices of women in tech are still being erased. And TikTok's decision to use a woman's voice without her permission is only one recent example of problems that some mistakenly think we've moved past. In the middle of the night on May 24th, TikTok changed its voice. The ubiquitous woman's voice that could read your video's text out loud is a slightly stilted robotic cadence was suddenly replaced by one with an almost smirky upbeat tone. Many users started calling the new one the Uncanny Valley Girl to express their displeasure. Little Nas X even made a TikTok about it. Uncanny Valley means it now sounds human, basically, to summarize. Like, you can't tell that it's not, or you can't tell that it's a robot. It seems totally human now. So when we think of women in computing, we often think about how, both literally and figuratively, they have been silenced more often than they've been listened to. Women's voices and bodies can be found all throughout the history of computing, from da-da-da. And it is still the case that when we hear a woman's voice as part of a tech product, we might not know who she is, whether she is even real, and if so, whether she consented to have her voice used in that way. Many TikTok users assume that the text-to-speech voice they heard on the app wasn't a real person, but it was. It belonged to Canadian voice actor named Bev Standing, and Standing had never given ByteDance, the company that owns TikTok, permission to use it. Standing sued the company in May, alleging that the ways her voice was being used, particularly the way users could make it say anything, including profanity, were injuring her brand and her ability to make a living. Her voice becoming known as that voice on TikTok that you could make say whatever you liked brought a recognition without remuneration or without payment, and she alleged hurt her ability to get voice work. Then, when TikTok abruptly removed her voice, she found out the same way the rest of us did by hearing the change and seeing the reporting on it. TikTok has not commented to the press about the voice change. Those familiar with the story of Apple Siri may be feeling a bit deja vu. Susan Bennett, the woman whose voice was the original Siri, also didn't know that her voice was being used for that project until it came out. Bennett was eventually replaced by a U.S. English female voice, and Apple never publicly acknowledged her. Since then, Apple has written secrecy clauses into voice actors' contracts, and most recently has claimed that its new voice is entirely software generated, removing the need to give anyone credit. These incidences reflect a troubling and common pattern in the tech industry. The way that people accomplished are valued, recognized, and paid for often mirrors their position in the wider society, not their actual contributions. And I think we get the point of the article. Okay, so I'm tweeting that one out for people who want to continue with that one. And the next one is about Fortune.com is claiming there's now worries about a chip glut, which I'm going to call bullshit on that. Analysts are worried the imbalance between demand and supply could swing the other way with chips. And as it says, since January, automakers and electronics producers have contended with a shortage in semiconductors, the components vital to controlling onboard computer functions. And all the quote here says, but now the imbalance between demand and supply risks swinging the other way as analysts warn a chip drought could become a chip glut. All the world's advanced economies, including the US, EU, South Korea, and China, have set out plans to advance capacity in the domestic semiconductor industry, says Lillian Lee, vice president of the senior credit officer at Moody's. Well, that would be a great problem to have because it would make prices go down. So call me crazy for not worrying about a chip glut. And now this one's wild. This one, thanks to Nicholas. If you're in the audience, it would be great to hear your take on this. It says, why are some Facebook users buying Oculus VR headsets and then returning them unopened? Anyone know why they're doing this? This is really interesting. JT might know if he's with us on stage, but I don't see him. So it turns out it's one of the top tips on Reddit for how to get your Facebook account back if you've been hacked. Because then you can force Facebook to recognize you as the owner of the account because you bought this hardware. And with Oculus, they're essentially becoming incredibly focused on making sure that the account that you attach, now Facebook has a piece of hardware called Oculus. It's a VR headset. And for lack of a better word, they call it something else in VR land. But you and I are going to call it a headset, and the whole world will soon. So to everyone in the VR industry who's not adopting the the word goggles or headset, yeah, that's your problem. So this VR headset or goggles is a piece of hardware. Facebook traditionally didn't have hardware for you to attach your account to. You did. You attached it to your iPhone, but they don't own that, or to your Android. They also don't own that. But now that you can attach your account to a piece of hardware, they want to verify. They want to make real sure that that account belongs to that piece of hardware. So when you buy a piece of Facebook hardware, aka the Oculus headset, and then you can now, if your account had previously been hacked, you have no control of your account. You can't get into your own account. And now you call Facebook, you're like, I bought this Oculus headset. I want to attach my account to my headset. And Facebook will actually take the time to make that happen for you. So now you can get your account back, essentially, by buying this headset. And then once they've reconnected your account, because they really want to make sure that's done correctly, then you return the headset without ever opening it. Boom, you have your account back. So very clever. Anyway, but it highlights the point that identity verification is going to come into everything very soon as well. So thanks to Nicholas for that one. And then Japan is using AI to help improve falling birth rates. As if anyone has a steeper decline in the terminal demography pyramid of declining birth rates, Japan's kind of leading the world on that point. And Japan is using AI to help improving birth rates. Japan government is looking to develop an advanced AI matchmaking system to stem the country's falling birth rate. As predicted, governments are going to start introducing matchmaking because that's how bad this problem is of declining birth rates. System takes into account age, income, hobbies, and values before pairing. And this is from the World Economic Forum, wefforum.org. And Japan's birth rate is declining and fast. Could AI be the solution? The Japanese government's looking for an AI. The system takes it. Japan's birth rate was down 5.8% in 2019. Holy shit. The lowest annual figure ever. Oh my God. The Japanese government, and that was pre-COVID. The Japanese government plans to step up efforts to stem the country's tumbling birth rate by helping to fund more sophisticated AI matchmaking services, media said. The number of births in 2019 down 5.8% to around 865,000, the lowest annual figure ever. A drop in the number of marriages and rise in age of marriage both played a role. In a country with a long history of human matchmakers, local governments have already moved onto AI matchmaking systems to pair people up, but many only consider criteria such as income and age and only produce results if there's an exact match. The latest envisioned central government funding will allow access to systems which pair people with potential partner, even if those income or age wishes do not match, according to Yomiuri Shimbun, which means newspaper. It's like one of the big newspapers in Japan. Yeah.
There's an interesting thing here, though.
Yeah.
You finish first, then.
Yeah. A number of Japanese prefectures have already introduced such systems, which take hobbies and values into account and produce a wider range of results, but they can be costly. Saitama, just north of Tokyo, spent $144,000, but saw some 21 couples head to the altar. Government data shows the number of marriages fell by 200,000 in Japan in 2020, from 2000 to last year. The national government will guarantee roughly 60% of the cost of the more elaborate AI systems, but out of 2 billion yen, it is requesting to fight the falling birth rate in next year's fiscal budget. A cabinet official confirmed the figure, but added, we're just dispersing money to fight the falling birth rate. It's up to the local governments how to spend it. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Yeah, it's a very odd thing for me as a foreigner, but I do hear from many of my Japanese friends, maybe after Tomoko-san can comment, that they don't really care so much about the husband, I mean the guy, as long as they are financially stable, they can support the family, and the girls want to have children, and some of them even go to the extent of being, wanting the sperm, want to be a single mother and take care of the children themselves. So I'm not sure about this AI matchmaking thing, whether it will really boost the fertility. But one thing for sure is I know many Japanese women, they do want to have children, but they don't need a husband.
Okay.
Tomoko-san, not around. Anyhow, I think if the Japanese government can actually be more, supportive of single mother, I think that may change a lot of problem as well. Tomoko-san, dozo.
Yes, exactly. We need many of people actually saying that they don't need a husband because husband, at least in Japan, husband is the first child of a wife, according to most of the Japanese people say. So they don't want to
It's kind of
nurture.
true, no?
Yes.
My husband too, anyway.
That's why they want to have the children or child the children
Just
rather
want the
than the
sperm,
husband.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and also, rather than using AI matchmaking, there are a couple of other matchmaking companies, as well as old system. And generally speaking, old system seems to be working better than the matchmaking companies. So, and also many people are not much interested in getting married anyway. So as Cheryl said, supporting the single mother is much more plausible solution for having better birth rate in Japan than having just AI.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
But I
Crazy,
don't know
right?
in China though. China may be working better than Japanese system
Yeah,
because in Japanese.
I'm on the record as predicting that China will do the same. But the fact that Japan's just come out with it, I think helps add kind of support to my prediction that China is going to come out with a state-sponsored matchmaking. But David Cheng says there's already so many matchmaking apps in China already, which is a great point. So, next headline, shall we? The Spirit Airlines and American Airlines cancel hundreds of flights. Bad weather and pandemic-related staffing issues have caused occasional disruptions this summer. And now with Delta coming, flights are being canceled again. Good times. And what else do we got here? Rengen sent one in, says, meet XPO, a fintech startup building a better bank for creators. As I've said, we're going to get specialized banks for different communities. You have black banks, LGBTQ banks, creator banks like Square. Now this one, XPO, calling themselves creator banks. Just tweeted that out from Forbes. And the next one is that just a quick new feature. Google Maps for iPhone adds live location sharing in iMessage and home screen widget and dark mode. Fantastic. And a former Kareem Pay boss launches something called Simplify, a cards as a service platform for the Middle East. And why this is interesting is because Kareem was Uber for the Middle East. And then they got acquired by Uber when Uber wanted to go into the Middle East. And now one of the bosses of Kareem is getting into what? Fintech for the Middle East. This guy knows what's going on. He knows how to spot a trend and capitalize on it. And this fintech will get acquired, just like Kareem did. And that's how the game works, folks. When Uber was hot, he saw the smoke on the horizon and built the Uber for the Middle East. And now he's building a fintech for the Middle East, and that will get acquired. And 3 years from now, he'll build an ed tech for the Middle East. And then, you guys can figure out how this works if you stay with us regularly. And the next one is an ed tech startup called Skill Link, raises 17 million in India. Another day, another ed tech India investment, the headline says. Yep, that's right. Ed tech in India is exploding, and more than ever now that the ed tech in China's game over. Those billions of dollars have to go somewhere, and they're looking at India first because that's the second biggest market. Now was the second biggest market. Now is the biggest market for ed tech because you can't. The Chinese market no longer exists. And why isn't Twitter paying musicians is the headline of this article. And I have a very simple answer to that because the musicians don't own their own rights. But what this is a really interesting article. And I might get really angry. Just a little warning here, as I tend to do on articles about music industry. I'm prone to get very angry because I had a record deal myself. I know how the law works, and journalists do not. And nor do politicians, and that's why I'm about to get furious if I read this article, but I'm going to read it anyways. But just a little warning, you might want to put your earmuffs on, so anyway, what this article says is a bipartisan group of 22 members of the House of Representatives have sent a letter to Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey. These 22 House representatives, politicians, members of Congress, the group is seeking to address the ongoing problem of copyright infringement on the platform, which honestly, is debatable. And they want an answer by August 27th, as if like there's some penalty for not responding or something. Go fuck yourselves, guys. Creative Content, the article that they sent to Jack Dorsey, or the letter they sent to him, says, "Dear Mr. Dorsey," and we have all the names of the 22 members of Congress in this article that I'm now tweeting out to the Tech News Twitter account. So I just tweeted it. It's the most recent tweet. And you can see the names of the 22 members of Congress and you can see the actual letter they sent to Mr. Jack Dorsey at 1355 Market Street, Suite 900, which is at Twitter HQ off of Market Street. And dear Mr. Dorsey, we write to you regarding the ongoing problem of copyright infringement on Twitter and the platform's apparent refusal to address it. Creative content drives engagement on Twitter. Yet, unlike numerous other platforms, Twitter has not acquired licenses necessary to ensure that all creators are properly compensated for use of their works. Already, I already know where this is going, because they're talking about acquiring the licenses, as the other platforms have done, namely Spotify and YouTube. And what they mean is, this has honestly got nothing to do with the artists. It's got everything to do with the record labels, because all of these streaming rights that the other platforms acquired were acquired from the labels who own those rights. So Spotify had to pay the three big tech companies, Sony, Warner's, and Universal, for the streaming rights, because if you pay all three of those, you've got 99% of all music. They own the streaming rights for 99% of all music. The artists on those labels do not own their own rights to their music. They gave away those rights when they signed the contract, when the label gave them in advance of about $100,000 to go make a record.
And Tyler, there might be songwriters. Some of them were also the artists themselves.
But those aren't the streaming rights. We're talking about from the platform's concern. It's about, they're just streaming the content. So they're not selling the content. If they were selling the content, then the songwriters' rights come into play. But Twitter's not selling the songs. If they were, then you get into the songwriter ownership. But in streaming rights, they need to get the streaming rights, which the labels exclusively have, almost without exception. There's very, very few artists who own their own streaming rights. Avicii was one, and this because his partner Ash is my dear friend, who's come in here multiple times, can tell you that story, because they were smart enough to know, hell no, we're not giving up our streaming rights. That's the future of music. Because Ash is a brilliant, foresightful guy and a best personal friend of Daniel Ek, the CEO of Spotify. And so he knew, no, we're not giving away our streaming rights. That's the real money now. So we're going to keep that, thank you. And they did. And that's why they made a boatload of money, where most artists did not, because they don't own their own streaming rights. So anyway, very few exceptions. Everyone signs away their streaming rights to get the record deal. The label owns the streaming rights. They sell those rights to the platforms like Spotify, like YouTube. And now 22 members of Congress are writing a letter to Jack Dorsey to say, hey, Jack Dorsey, let me read it again. And now listen to what's really going on here. Twitter has not acquired licenses necessary to ensure that all creators are properly compensated. What? The creators don't even own their own rights. The labels do. So who are you really writing this letter on behalf of? 22 members of Congress. Are you actually concerned about the creators? I think not, because they don't own their rights. The labels do. So who inspired you? Who lobbied you to convince you to write this letter to Twitter? Because if Twitter does acquire the rights, the artist gets diddly bupkiss. Nothing. Zero zip. The labels do. And they're going to get millions. And the labels are asking Jack Dorsey, hey, Jack, could you please maybe pay for some of the streaming rights, because people are listening to music on Twitter, which honestly they're not. You're not going to Twitter to listen to music. You go to Twitter, you click on a link that takes you to Spotify or to YouTube, and they intentionally designed it that way so that they don't have to pay the streaming rights. You're not actually listening to the music on actual Twitter. So, with the exception of SoundCloud, which, by the way, that is playing on SoundCloud. It's what they call a card in Twitter, the Twitter card team, which was run by Reeve, which is a startup I invested in called, what was his app called? Cabana app was acquired by Twitter, which I helped with that acquisition. Cabana app, and Reeve and his team built the card team in Twitter, which is, when you get additional media inside of your tweet. They call those Twitter cards. And so SoundCloud with Alex and Eric in Berlin, who are Swedes, by the way, from Stockholm, were the first media partnership to embed their SoundCloud player inside of Twitter cards. So yes, SoundCloud you can listen to, but on SoundCloud, that's generally from the artist themselves, and you're listening to it on SoundCloud. You're listening it through the SoundCloud player. So again, it doesn't really touch Twitter. So my point is, who inspired these 22 members of Congress to write this letter to Jack Dorsey asking him to pay for streaming rights, which if he were to do so, those money would go directly and only exclusively to the record labels. So who do we think inspired them to write this letter? The artists? Who? Queen Latifah is asking Congress to do this? Who do we suppose is asking? What artist do we assume inspired 22 members of Congress to do this? Come, give me a fucking break. So, and by the way, the phrasing of Twitter has not acquired licenses to ensure that all creators are properly compensated. The creators ain't going to get jack shit, even if they do pay this.
Tyler, I'm going to send you something from Rolling Stone that basically said that there are things that are owed to songwriters, even for streaming rights. There's something called the Copyright Royalty Board, and they established the rate, and those rates actually have been going higher for the songwriters, and now Spotify is complaining about it. So there obviously is something for songwriters as opposed to just singers.
It's the performers, yeah. It's a mechanical royalty. It's not. It's
right,
not.
Right.
It's that's a debatable point. So this is just stay focused on this. Kelly Armstrong, a Republican from North Dakota, and Hakeem Jeffries and John Curtis and Adam Schiff from Pasadena. Adam, you're a good dude. And Ted Lieu, I can't believe you put your name on this. You guys, well, maybe it's not a coincidence. They're both, from California. Both in Adam Schiff, he's actually from Pasadena, which is just down the street from Hollywood. So this is not a coincidence, by the way, because the record biz clearly is behind this to encourage Twitter to pay for the licenses as Spotify and data, because it's billions of dollars. So to the list of the 20, Debbie Wasserman, I can't believe you put your name on this. Shame on you, folks, for doing, and the way that you're phrasing this, that it's like, oh, help the artists, you're hurting the artists and the creators. Give me a fucking break. This is despicable nonsense. If you stop with this lobbying shenanigans, writing a letter to Jack Dorsey on behalf of the record labels and not even admitting that that's what. Why would 22 politicians get together to do anything? And by the way, these are a 50-50 split of Republican and Democrats, which you cannot get Republicans and Democrats to agree on anything, ever, anything. And yet you've got them agreeing to write a letter to Jack Dorsey. How the fuck did that magically happen? These people don't write letters for free to CEOs of tech companies together, 22 people getting together. So let's be real here. Hey, investigative journalists out there. Hey, LA Times, anybody, let's figure out what really inspired these 22 members of Congress to write this letter to Jack Dorsey. I'll give you a hint. It's the record business. Out here. Give me a fucking break. And without, let's really figure out what's going on here. You put your names down on this thing. Now you're going to hold your feet to the fire. Let's find out how much you got paid by the RIAA, Recording Industry Association of America. That's who did it. I'll name the name right now. RIAA. Look it up. Find the check. Find that payment. Investigative journalists out there, find that payment from RIAA to Debbie Wasserman Schultz's political action campaign. Ted Lieu, I can't believe Adam Schiff, man, what are you doing? Taking that easy money to write a letter to Jack Dorsey. Come on, guys. You got way better things to focus on. Anyway, and no one's listening to the streaming on Twitter. Who's sitting on Twitter listening to music? Give me a fucking break. Anyway. So thank you for that head. I told you I was going to get angry with that one. The next one is 5 ways to turn Bali into Zoom Island is the headline for global remote workers. The Indonesian government should consider opening its plan to the world by turning Bali into quote unquote Zoom Island. Clearly written by someone who's never been to Bali, because it's like one of the most majestic, I would even say, divine geographies on the planet. It's truly miraculous. What an incredibly spiritual, special place Bali is. And the idea of turning it into Zoom Island makes my stomach turn, to be honest. So, nonetheless, it's, yeah, if you're going to live anywhere and work on a laptop, you could do much worse than Bali. That's for sure. It's incredibly cheap. It's incredibly gorgeous. And if it is going to help the economy rebound, then let's do it in a way that is beneficial to all the locals and not a burden, because you've got that temple. Starbucks turned one of the Balinese temples. It's one of the most bizarre things ever. One of these really cool Balinese temples in Ubud, and Starbucks like is right up in it. You're literally in the temple at Starbucks, and it's like, it's wild. So anyway, hopefully if it's of benefit to the Balinese and they're all in on it, cool. If not, don't push it on them. Let them run that. And it is an opportunity. There definitely is something there. And Thailand indeed is thinking of something similar, but it needs to be done in the right way. And it's, again, you got to do it with the locals involved in a way that works for them, and let them run it with your support. But don't be very careful about kind of colonizing Bali. They've got enough problems already. So anyway, let me tweet that out so everyone sees that. Anyone got a hot one that they want to share? Here's one that Professor Ossoff just shared from Bloomberg, that Americans are willing to take pay cuts to never go back in the office, which, by the way, they're going to have to do because they're now competing with a global marketplace of talent, like in Vietnam and Ukraine and Romania, where people are willing to work for a tenth of the cost. By the way, your average monthly salary of a really educated person with a college degree in Romania is about $600 a month with a computer science degree. So you're going to compete with that? Someone from San Francisco with a $200,000 a month salary? For real? You want to compete with a Romanian for $600 a month? Is that what you want to do? You want to do the full remote work thing? Let's do that. You watch what's coming. You watch this train wreck that's about to explode in their face when they realize, shit, we're competing with Romanians and Vietnamese willing to work for $600 a month. You're falling into a trap, dude. Here it comes. This is an easy prediction. Watch what's going to happen. You think the big tech companies don't know this? You think Mark Zuckerberg isn't like rubbing his hands in delight that this is going to become a global talent game now? And Google, now telling everyone, yeah, go ahead, work wherever you want. Great. Go get comfortable down there in Ho Chi Minh City. You're going to love it. It's fantastic. Oh my God. And it's a quarter of the price of living in LA. And it's a tenth of the price of living in the Bay Area. 1/10. Oh, and by the way, yeah, and the people sitting in the building next to you are willing to work for 1/10 of your salary. So how much are we paying you again? $100,000 a month. Yeah, $100,000 a month is what a lot of, Facebook, Google, Apple employees make. So the person in the building next door to you, very similar skills, willing to work for, I don't know, $2,000 a month. You're making $100,000 a month. The person next door is willing to work for $2,000 a month. Gosh, I wonder who we should hire. $100,000 a month versus $2,000 a month. It's such a difficult decision to make here. Sorry, Jeff, you've been a fantastic contributor over the years. Would you be willing to work for $3,000 a month now that you're living in, Ho Chi Minh City? Here it comes. Get ready. You're falling into a trap. Whatever. I'm all for it. Globalize the tech talent workforce. It's going to help startups when everything fully becomes global remote. The cost of building a startup is going to get cut, in 1/5. If you're able to fully have a global workforce from Romania and Indonesia and everywhere else. Fantastic. And then that helps it lowers the financial barriers to building a tech company. Great. I need far less VC money because now I can tap into global talent. I don't have to get the talent in the San Francisco Bay Area that's going to charge me $150,000 a month for a top developer. Great. It's going to be interesting. So, Yeah, Americans are willing to take a pay cut to never go into the office again. A new survey shows 65% of workers who said their jobs could be done entirely remotely are willing to take a 5% reduction to stay at home. Oh, that's cute. That's so sweet.
Oh my God.
65% of workers say they'll take a pay cut of 5%. I got news for you, Bobby. How's 50% sound? How's that sound, Bobby? Because, you know, Vinesh over here in Bengaluru is willing to do your job for half the price. Would you care to comment, Bobby? Oh, by the way, he's got 3 more degrees than you do. What's your comment, Bobby? Get ready. It's coming, Bobby. Vinesh is going to eat your lunch. So, and all power to him. I got no problem with it. Startups are the ones that are going to benefit most of all. And tech talent globally is going to benefit most of all. So, yeah, 5% reduction to stay at home. Give me a fucking break. Okay, next article. The Chinese money finds its way into booming India tech scene, according to South China Morning Post. How's that happening? It says India's tech scene is flourishing after COVID-19 led to greater use of digital services. Yeah, we've heard that story 1,000 times. And with investors pouring $10 billion into startups this year. While investors such as SoftBank dominate, they're from Japan, not China, by the way, Chinese investors are also returning via Hong Kong, despite New Delhi's FDI rules and deteriorating bilateral relations. So they're going to get kicked out. With Chinese investors facing rules restricting their participation in Indian companies, players in India's flourishing tech scene have turned to Japanese conglomerate SoftBank. There it is. Smart. Moss is a genius. And he's got all the deep connections into all of the Chinese investors. And now he's saying, hey, you're blocked from investing in India. Guess what? I'm not, because I'm Japanese. Give me your billions. I'll spend it for you. And now you understand why you're reading these headlines. SoftBank just gave $5 billion to Roche and another $5 billion here and a $5 billion there and a $5 billion there. Boom. He's got all of China's money pouring into SoftBank. Genius. So genius. The value of venture deals in India rose by $7.9 billion in July alone in 1 month, according to data by research firm Preqin. But venture capital investments from mainland China plunged from $1 billion in 2018 to just $76 million in the first 6 months of 2021. Data research venture is gone. There's no more money is going into China anyways, so they want to invest in India anyways. They can't. They go through SoftBank. Genius. Moss is a genius, as usual. Next one. Now we figured that one out. Stealth investment is the headline. Stealth investment. Chinese money finds its way into Indian tech via SoftBank. Moss is a genius. That's hardly news, but clever move. Turkey wildfires. We covered that. Whole lot of them. And Bodrum. U.S. military reveals Minority Report technology to help predict enemy investments. Nalormi, come on. We know this is bogus because a guy got stabbed out in front of the Pentagon 2 days ago. So clearly they got a lot of work to do on that one. Delta Plus COVID variant continues to spread to new regions, according to Reuters. The Delta Plus variant, which could be even more contagious mutation of the Delta variant that's currently infecting people around the world, is beginning to spread into new regions. Officials in South Korea say they've confirmed 2 cases of Delta Plus. The bonus, one in a man in his 40s with no recent travel records, and the second from a person who recently returned from the U.S. The second confirmed case had reportedly received both doses of AstraZeneca coronavirus vaccine. Doesn't matter. Delta Plus, which the World Health Organization lists as a variant of concern, was first detected in the UK in June and has since been found in several other countries, including US, India, China, Russia, Japan. It's uncertain at this point how concerned people should be about this variant. Data about the variant is still preliminary, which has led some health officials to wonder if the upgrade from a variant of interest to one of the concerns might be premature. And at least 39 have been discovered in the UK. Delta Plus has not yet shown that the mutations give it a contagion advantage over Delta variant or other mutations. Infections so far have primarily been in younger people. Well, that could be a reason to be concerned. And while the data is still preliminary, it seems that antibodies in vaccinated people are still effective against this variant. Experts warn those findings could shift, though, since the sample size is still very small. Delta Plus is just one of several variants officials are keeping their eye on as it continues to spread and mutate. Good times. So, where does that take us? To the top of the hour. So we'll pause here. We're going to join again in 5 hours for another Tech News Around the World. And thank you to everybody yet again for another fantastic Tech News Around the World. We'll see you again in 5 hours. Click on the title of the room and follow the club. And have a wonderful rest of your Thursday, everybody.
Yeah, Tyler, 水いっぱい飲んでくださいね。
お疲れ様でした。
何？
お疲れ様。
またね。
What language is that?
Japanese.
Okay.
Sharon said, take lots of water.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tyler.
Drink lots of water. 水いっぱい飲んでください。
Well, he's gonna have a Subway or tuna. That's what.
Go have a Subway sandwich, everybody.
Tuna one.
Yep.